If everybody could get ready, and we're going to get started here. Dave.
Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Remember to speak into the microphone, as this meeting is being recorded for public record. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, everybody. We are at the October 18th Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee. We're here in a gloomy, windy day in Miami Beach, but hopefully we get through a pretty simple agenda today and get everybody on with a very pleasant weekend. I'll hand it over to our CFO if you want to make introductions, and our city attorney, and we can take it from there.
Good morning. Today's meeting of the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee has been scheduled in a hybrid format with a quorum of the committee physically present and remaining members, staff, and members of the public appearing either in person or virtually via Zoom. In order to participate in today's meeting virtually, members of the public may dial 1-888-475-4499 and enter the webinar ID, which is 863-6059-5462#, or log into the Zoom app and enter the webinar ID, which again is 863-6059-5462. Any individual wishing to speak on an item must click the raise hand icon if they are using the Zoom app, or dial *9 if you are participating by phone.
Thank you, Chair. I have a number of items to announce as deferral and time certain. NB7 has been deferred to the February FERC. NB8 has been deferred to the November FERC. NB13 has been deferred to the November FERC. The following are the time certains. NB14 has a 10:30 a.m. time certain. NB10 has an 11 a.m. time certain. And MB12 has a 12 noon time certain. 10. Yeah, that is all.
And I've also been asked by the sponsor to defer NB1.
We'll note MB1 deferred.
Why don't we get started with the 10:30 time certain? NB14, discuss Lincoln Road Public Seating Sponsorship Pilot Program.
I'll read it. Yes. MB14, discuss implementation of the public seating sponsorship pilot program on Lincoln Road. MB14.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an item that I have placed on the agenda to help the businesses on Lincoln Road, and we've joined together both as sponsors of this item, both you and myself that we're sponsoring this. We need to support small businesses, the small businesses going into Lincoln Road, and right now, oftentimes they have to pay very high fees to place tables on the right of ways at a time when we want to encourage businesses filling up empty spaces in Lincoln Road. We need to maintain the vibrancy of this pedestrian corridor. So we've asked the administration to put together ideas on how we can implement as a city a public seating pilot program so that the city can come in, provide the tables, perhaps partner with the bid on the maintenance of those tables, and support the small businesses that are trying to open up on this important corridor. If you allow me, Mr. Chair, I'd like to recognize our staff to give us their recommendations on how to proceed with this item.
Of course, and I appreciate you bringing the item forward, appreciate the bid supporting this. Brad, I'll recognize you.
Good morning, Chair Magazine, Commissioner fellow chairs. I'm going to have staff provide an update today on our efforts on this very important project. We've been working hand in hand with Annabelle in the bid, and also just trying to make sure we put all together a good scope and criteria that makes sense for this program. so we can achieve the goals that we are looking to and make it a successful pilot project. So with that said, I'm going to let Charles Ortiz from our Public Works Department come up here and provide the latest update on where we're at.
Good morning, everyone. So far we've been in communication with BID in regards to the expectations, timelines, and design of the tables and chairs that will be taking place. The goal is to provide seating in a public capacity for locations that don't have interior seating that are not eligible for the outdoor dining program. So using benches, public chairs that everyone could use, funded privately by the BID. We will work with them, they will manage it, and this seems like a good idea going forward.
Mr. Chair? So I just want to make sure, so the pilot program.
Yes.
Under what has been produced by staff, this wouldn't apply, let's say, to all establishments. How do we make sure that this really targets the smaller establishments that are starting up that might need support?
Right, so how we differentiate it is the BTR classification. So the many restaurants on Lincoln Road already have interior seating assigned to them. This would be for takeout only establishments that don't have any interior seating.
Okay, and are we tying this to any square footage?
No.
No? Okay, all right. And who would be maintaining the tables?
This would be all done by the BID and the private businesses that will be partnering with us.
All right.
Yeah. What type of seating are we getting? And where I'm going with this, I guess we have two choices. We could just be mundane and put a bunch of tables and chairs out there that any layperson would have on their balcony, or we all aspire to be greater, right? And so often we compare ourselves to the design district and things like that and say, well, why can't we replicate things like that? One of the great things that they have going over there is essentially almost urban art that doubles as furniture. You know, if you look at 41st and 42nd Street, they have those pink chairs and, you know, they essentially serve functionality for seating, but they also are out of the box and just add to the overall environmental and urban streetscape. Have we thought about, even if it would be a mixture of the two, just having your everyday pedestrian seating, but then also getting creative and really aspiring to be better?
Yeah, that's certainly something we can look into. As part of the pilot, the city will be determining and reviewing the design of the tables and or chairs that will be out there. So the BID will present to us with their ideas, we'll go back and forth, and ultimately we will review and approve.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure, because on our analysis on the information that we received, it stated that the program would prioritize small food establishments, potentially those that are about 2,500 square feet or less. So I just want to make sure, so we are limiting this to establishments of a smaller square footage.
Yes, and generally the establishments on Lincoln Road are limited by their interior retail area. We're mainly targeting by the classification on the BTR. So these should all fall under the 2,500 or less.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure, because like an establishment, a national chain like Cheesecake Factory, they have a huge a relatively large footprint. They don't need this.
No.
But a smaller mom and pop that might not be able to afford a large footprint would need this. So I just want to make sure, to the extent that we're creating a pilot program, that we really do focus it not just on, you know, any, but like specifically those that have a smaller square footage, that perhaps are the ones that need our help a little bit more.
Yeah, and again, like we won't have any issues with places like Cheesecake Factory because they have interior seating allocated to them, which makes them eligible for the outdoor dining concession program. So these will be for, like you said, little places that aren't eligible for that.
And how long will the pilot program be for?
3-month period to start. Right. But, was it? It's 6? My correction, 6 months. Oh, we're going a year? Okay, 1 year.
Okay,
Sorry.
all right. Okay, and is there any funding requests from the administration on this item?
So the furniture will be funded by the bid and its partners, privately funded. So we will not be anything other than a potential permit fee. There won't be any cost to us.
Okay, great. Well, Mr. Chair, I think I would like to make a motion at the appropriate time, once we get more feedback from our colleagues, recommending that the administration implement this pilot program. I think this could be great as we are trying to collaborate with businesses to help them fill empty spaces on the road.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Tanya Bott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the documentation, it says 6 months. So is it 6 months or a year?
Bradley?
Okay, so the documentation is, okay,
So it's 1 year.
so it's 1 year. So do we know how many possible retailers this will affect? And also, if you're not literally directly on Lincoln Road, but part of, on one of the side streets, would you be able to be considered for this program as well? Like, for instance, Salt and Straw is an ice cream shop that is the target beneficiary of this. The Freeze just got sold. It's around the corner from Lincoln Road, but it is effectively part of Lincoln Road. Would they also be able to benefit from something like this?
I believe all this will go under the master permit. So if they are part of the Lincoln Road bid, they should be available.
So as long as you're part of the bid, you can be considered?
That is correct.
Okay. And do we know roughly how many businesses could be a part of this pilot program?
At this time, we're looking at 2 to 3 to start. That number could be more or less depending on the locations interested in participating. It should start as relatively minor footprint at first.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. I think you see that we're eager to move this along. I don't want to, get off tangent here, but it's a good opportunity. I'm not sure who I'm directing this to, but if it's applicable to anybody, how long did it take this ice cream shop to open? I know Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez was a huge champion of this, moving this along, but this was a pretty well-renowned ice cream shop. Did it, if I'm understanding correctly, years to open? And we're all excited about a new restaurant opening on Lincoln Road in the coming weeks. It's my understanding it took 5 years to open. Another tenant, Mr. Nice Guy, they're going through a multi-year process. Anybody want to come up and say what's going on here? I mean, tell me how an ice cream shop, how many scoops of ice cream they're expected to sell to cover rent costs to converting for a year. Is it, maybe I'm off, maybe these are normal timeframes, but anybody want to speak on that? And anybody want to, yeah.
I'm not the expert on that, unfortunately.
And is that acceptable? Is it not? Are we going to fix it? Come back and follow up next meeting? Anybody? Takers? No? Okay. Well, it's a good message for future ice cream shops looking to open. Mr. CFO.
I just wanted to check if you wanted, I think I have the motion, but if it was to go back to commission, but if you also wanted to retain, I think it's,
No.
okay.
So the motion is for 1 year, so we're amending the recommendation on the item. So it's 1 year. And Commissioner Magazine, you are so on point, because we need to be self-aware that when we talk about challenges in our economy and challenges in a pedestrian mall like Lincoln Road, a lot of it is our own doing. And we have to be aware of that as a government. We need to make improvements in our regulatory approval processes, because it's challenges that are unsustainable. And I hope with a new city administration that is resonating, the new building director that's coming in will take this seriously to streamline the processes, to make sure that people don't need to continue suffering years of being empty and having to pay rent. But speaking of rent, the same way that we are self-aware that we are a big problem in this as a government, our bureaucracy, our red tape, our process, let's look at the other side as well. Landlords need to be self-aware as well. Landlords are pricing out small businesses from our city. Landlords who are not offering an appropriate rent are making it hard to attract businesses to our city. So we are self-aware of the challenges that we need to improve. But going forward, I want to, and I was making a point to say this in this meeting, moving forward, I'm going to be thinking twice about a lot of the things that come from these business districts until I see what the landlords themselves are doing to create a better environment for the business community. How long has spaces been empty? How much more are they charging compared to other areas where vacancy rates aren't as high? And what are they doing recently to improve that? Because all that I hear from the business community is that the landlords are pushing them out. And it's something that we need to address, as well as addressing our own internal challenges with our red tape and our bureaucracy.
Commissioner.
As long as we're all just talking about whatever we want, I'm just gonna bring about on Lincoln Road. Yesterday I happened to be with another business owner, and Jason, you're gonna love this, but I'm hoping that in the months moving forward, we're going to have to lower or give some relief to the prices of the sidewalk cafes. I know of one restaurant who's gonna close its doors if we don't. He said, I can't do it anymore. And I think, I've thought so much about this, and I think the reason that this is happening is because the Delano, the Shore Club, the Shelbourne, the Raleigh, every single hotel is closed right now. They're all under construction. So they're dying. It's empty. It's empty. It's the emptiest I've ever seen it. So it's not on this agenda, but Jason, I'm going to tell you that when we roll back fees, I want to give relief to, and we just gave relief to 41st Street. They're not paying for sidewalk cafes. Now, I'm not saying that Lincoln Road does not have to, and I don't know what the fiscal impact of that will be, but I am going to bring an item moving forward that 3 months out of the year, especially, for example, somebody was showing me their seating yesterday. It's not that much, but the fees have increased so exponentially that to have an outdoor cafe at this point is $50,000 in addition to their rent. You're right. I think that the property owners have to do something, but the businesses that are open right now on Lincoln Road are also asking us, in the interim, until these large hotels move through the process of their constructions, they need relief too. And I do not want to increase their fees. It just doesn't make sense. I don't know what that increase will be, but hopefully you guys will consider this, because can you imagine more restaurants closing on Lincoln Road right now? It can't. We can't have it because we can't get them open. So, by the way, there are new restaurants opening. I said I was going to be a cheerleader. You've got the Negroni Sushi opening, Andres Carne de Res, Alain Ducasse, something called Ordo. That sounds very cool and hip. So we do have some new stuff opening, but it is taking too long.
But, and Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm sorry, because Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez brings up a great point, especially during slow season. We need to give maybe a fee holiday to these sidewalk cafes during slow season. But I'm going to tell you this, and I'm glad that the bid is here, because I want the people who represent the property owners to hear me when I say this. I will only support, and I would urge us as a commission to only support a fee holiday to the extent that the landlords are willing to offer a break to their tenants during those periods of times, because the landlords are the ones that are, profiting here left and right. On this, they charge people more rent because of the frontage that they have on the sidewalk, and they're the reasons why we have vacancies right now. So I agree with you. We need to offer a discount on these fees, but the landlords need to show skin in the game and cooperate with this, because we are helping their tenants.
Do you want to co-sponsor this?
I'll
with
be
me?
happy to join you.
Wonderful. So Jason, we've already got 2 votes for this. We need you to roll it back and discount it.
Since I guess this is just Festivus and we're all airing our grievances, I agree with you, Commissioner. One, kind of piggybacking on my point I made earlier about how long it takes in Miami Beach to open a store. Why does it take so long to do construction here, right? I think we need some answers. I don't know if there's anybody out there in the abyss that wants to take this on as a challenge or a project, but why does it take the Raleigh, so long to build when entire cities, quite literally entire neighborhoods across the bay have been built in the time it takes to do one building here, right? It just does not make any sense. The Delano, the Shore Club, these are all great projects that we're all excited about, but these are years in the making. How long have we all sat there and been like, we're so excited about the Raleigh coming, so excited about the Delano. When? Why does it take so long in the city to get things done? It's an economic disadvantage. And then, you know, I'll sound like a broken record, but I agree with everything you said about all the hotels being closed and the need for the convention center. But I'll also, you know, piggyback and say it's full-time residents that we lost that supported a lot of these small local businesses. If you look at what the owner of Duraku said in the Miami New Times when they had to close on Lincoln Road, he said, we used to have a great residential happy hour. We just lost the residents that stopped going there. If you look at Yard House, right, that is kind of a mom and pop local business with other locations, but it's a place that's frequented by residents. We just don't have the residential population to support that. If you look at a place like Books and Books, right, who's going to go to Books and Books? Full-time residents that live here that are going to walk over at 10 a.m. to grab their morning coffee and breakfast, and those are the people that we've lost as well, not just the hotels. So I think in conjunction, I think we need to look at the entire ecosystem. So the devil's in the details, but I imagine I'll be proud to co-sponsor that with you all as well.
Wonderful. And in addition, I would like to add that possibly when you've waited a year or 2 years or 3 years to open your restaurant, your first 6 months of sidewalk cafe permitting fees should be on us because it's taken us so long to get it open. I know it sounds like a lot, but they're really suffering, and we want to incentivize people. So, and that's not a big cost to us. It's no cost to us, actually, something that we can do.
I think we were going to say only the commissioners can air their grievances, but go ahead.
No, and just if you need any information regarding the heaviest hit areas and which areas, because essentially I do get that complaint a lot about the fees and all that. So any information you might need regarding that, I'd be happy to pass along.
Yeah, if we don't do this relief, we're going to see restaurants close. And by the way, I'm not going to out the person who told me, but it's a restaurant that residents do frequent on Lincoln Road, and it's been there for decades. And the possibility of something like that going out of business is so scary to me that I think we need to do whatever we can.
Okay, excellent.
If I could get back to the motion, I believe the motion is to return to commission with a favorable recommendation to direct the administration to work with the Lincoln Road bid to establish the one-year pilot program as presented.
Excellent. Well, let's use that as a leeway. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I guess we have to vote.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Let's move to NB5. I wasn't expecting this, but I think it's a good piggybacking. Sorry for using that word for the third time by 11 a.m. Discuss the possible creation of incentives for owners of vacant commercial properties to lease vacant spaces.
Good morning.
Shaw.
I was sitting back there saying, oh, this is my whole position. Heather Shaw, Assistant Director, Economic Development. I think we've had a big, robust conversation about this. For this item, we've been trying to do some research for actually a larger item that we're bringing back in January. But we did some research in looking at the best practices of other cities. I mean, we have a lot of programs here that we are doing to attract businesses and also support the businesses that we have. We have these vacant storefront covers for the stores that are going out, and actually Lincoln Road is probably one of the largest areas where we have the storefront covers. And last year, I think we did 62, which is a lot. And so what we're doing with them is that we are going back to all of those businesses and saying, okay, we covered your business, we made it pretty, what are you doing to activate and find tenants, and what can we do to support you and help you navigate, or what we can do to help you not have to use these storefront covers, because we've had a few who've come back after a year saying if they've had some graffiti or what have you, wanting to do them again, and we only do them once. And it's like, well, what have you done in a year to get tenants into your space? We also have, obviously, our JCIP, which is a job creation program. That's an incentive to get new businesses. And then we have the expedited plan review, which is actually something that a lot of new businesses like to do. And that that program actually expedites the whole process of getting permits and getting them open. For us, it's limited to technology companies and financial services and people who are bringing their headquarters in, but it is something that a lot of businesses come to us and say, help us walk through. And I know on a larger scale, we as a city are looking at how with our new building director, how we can expedite that as well for other businesses. But when we looked at other cities to see what they were doing to encourage property owners to get new tenants, a lot of them were doing some of the programs that we were doing, facade programs, doing small grants to businesses. But some of the newer ones are giving grants, which we don't do, give grants to new businesses for startups or small businesses to give them money to help them in their first year of staying in existence. It's kind of hard, as you all discussed a second ago. Rents are extremely high for Miami Beach, and it's very difficult. And if you are renting a space and then it takes you 6 months to a year to open and you're paying rent, if you put aside some money, you think that you're going to open up a lot quicker, and now you're depleted of money, and then it's very difficult for you to succeed in year 2. So how we can help them do that. There are other programs like, in addition to grants, doing abating permit costs, which you all just discussed. That's something that other cities are doing, tax abatements that they have as well. So there are a lot of cities that are doing similar things that we're doing, and some of the things just seem to be natural that we could potentially engage in, and we'll give that full report to you after doing all of this. But I also agree with what you were discussing, that the city can come up with a lot of programs and have a lot of money associated with those programs, but it isn't a one-way street. We have to do it in partnership with our business improvement districts, with our neighborhood associations, and our owners. The owners really have to be part of this, because if we don't, then we're just going to have more and more empty spaces. As much as we can continue to have available funds for them, if the rent keeps going up, and our rent for Miami Beach is typically higher than most of Florida. And when you look at places like what you were just discussing on Lincoln Road, when you have rents that are, upwards of $300 a square foot, it's very difficult for businesses to come in, open, operate, build out, and then succeed. So we're going to come back, but I wanted to also just let you know the research that we were doing, and if you had any other direction that you wanted us to take.
I appreciate that, Ms. Shaw. And one thing I'd like to work with you and your team hand in hand with over the next month is really doing an analysis of how our city is growing, because that's my biggest fear. Is I believe we're just over commercialized, right? We haven't grown in the right ways. If you look at south of Fifth, which is one of the preeminent dining destinations in the world, right? We're going to have over 1,000 new restaurant seats coming online. And we have, like I said, no population growth. We have limited new hotels. Where is all that demand going to be absorbed from? And this is coming at a time when there's more formidable options across the bay as well, right? And we've seen the resort taxes. After COVID, it has nothing to do with Miami Beach. It's just the change of the world. More places are open. People have been to Miami. So expecting 2022 spending to be our baseline is just unrealistic. So we're already going to have a dampening in spending. And just in that area, we're going to have 1,000 new restaurant seats coming online. Lincoln Road, as exciting as we all are, we're going to have a couple hundred, if not 1,000 new restaurant seats coming online there. Who's going to be eating at all these places? Yeah. Right? And that's why some of these commercial spaces are vacant. If you go down, I would really like to do a corridor by corridor analysis. If you look at our Art Deco historic shopping district on Collins Avenue from 5th to 13th Street, what is going on? I'm just asking. Yeah, I mean, it is an 80% vacancy there. 80%.
Well,
if you look at Washington Avenue under the Good Times Hotel and things like that, 50% vacancy. We really need to think about long and hard, because yes, there's some things like rent, high rent and things, but it's also an ecosystem that I think we may be getting wrong. Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez.
You asked what was going on there? Shoplifting, that's what was going on. And all of these businesses opened up. I saw what is it, like a Forever 21 style store open on 8th and Collins, and they were so excited about it. And the property owner said, oh, you know, the longtime South Beach property owners, they opened it and there was no police presence, and they were getting shoplifted like crazy, so they closed. And one after another, because we were not policing the area, and there were drug dealers going out on the streets. And at one point, actually, during COVID, there was like a street takeover on Collins. Do you remember that? When the street was just taken over? So yeah, they left. But now we need to send a message. And here I think is the biggest thing. You know, we did spring break last year. Don't come, we're breaking up with you. And we have another campaign this year, which is going to be great. Don't come again. But we're not saying come back. So you're saying don't come. It's, you know, we're breaking, and I get that. Good message. But you're not counterbalancing it with a counter campaign. I actually have an item coming forward saying, all right, you know what? Let's spend the $200,000 on spring break. It really worked last year. I think that is what saved us and that really was a game changer. But now let's spend an additional $200,000 on boosting what we have. One other thing that I think we could do, Heather, and I think you need to approach Durham, is go into these spaces. Let the property owners know, we're going to go to Durham and we're going to say, if you have an existing kitchen, we're going to give you a 2 or 3 year abatement on your grease trap and anything that you need to upgrade so that you can go in and open up. Because the big fear as people come in, where do we get stuck in the process? They get stuck in Durham. If you could get us this abatement, so that we don't have to go through this process. Every existing kitchen on Miami Beach, get them that let's say 2 years. That way they can open up, and then once they start making, you know, the money, they can get past that obstacle and then go back and update their grease traps. I think that would be a game changer, and we're not doing that. We need to push. So that would be my motion, if you really wanted to incentivize, would be to send our economic development to the county and ask for instant abatements for all existing restaurant projects. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, and I love the marketing campaign. Actually, I have an item on this month's commission agenda for exactly that. And Mr. City Attorney, may even be in the exact amount, right? 200,000 or 250,000. I'd love for you to join as a prime sponsor.
Sure.
Just to interrupt, I believe that the city does have a new positive campaign that's on that came after breaking up with you. They have a new campaign, I think it's been going on for a few months, that is a positive, like, come back, you know, we're more mature, we want you, the more mature person. It's been on our social media, but I defer to communications to
Did we blast it? Like, how much did we spend? Is it international? I mean, I don't think it's working. Like, people are telling me, and we keep saying, I asked for the tourism tax numbers for August and September, which had just come in a couple of days ago. I've yet to get them, but business owners are telling me that they're paid this year 20% less taxes. I think the restaurants are getting hit harder than anyone else. So we're seeing this, you know, it's not working.
So,
Whatever
but
the campaign is, we need more.
I have a question. So we're talking about abatements we're doing. We're talking about incentives we're going to be doing. We're talking about the tables we're going to be putting as a pilot program on Lincoln Road. We're talking about the advertising that potentially we could be doing and that we've been doing. You know, we also have Find Your Wave, and there's a number of other things. There's a partnership with the GNCVB that also, and perhaps, you know, we need to bring the GNCVB to brief us, to give us an update on what they're doing, because that is important. That's a big contract that we have.
And also the chamber too.
And the chamber. So the city is doing stuff, and we're going to be doing more because that's our responsibility. The businesses are trying to survive. And I go back, who is someone we're not hearing from? The property owner. What is the property owner doing? What are they doing to help? We're doing an abatement. What is the property owner doing to help with these situations? And I agree with all of us. The city has a lot of fault. The bureaucracy and the red tape and the process and Durham at the county, we are very much self-aware of that. But I really do think this is the moment where the rubber hits the road. And that if we are doing all of this and we're giving the taxpayers money to do subsidies and incentives, that doesn't go to the pocket of the small business owner. Let's be very clear where that goes to. That goes to the large property owners who are asking for these very out-of-scale rents that have pushed out the diversity of our small business community from Miami Beach. What are they doing to balance off the scale on this? We're going to be doing a lot as a city, but this scale needs to be balanced. And I want to see that while we are doing a lot and bringing a lot to the table, I am going to be seeing, and I'm going to need to see as part of any of this, what are the individual property owners doing? Because they have deeper pockets than what this city or our taxpayers do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Bott and then Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
A couple of things. First of all, just from a pragmatic standpoint, I appreciate the direction Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez is talking about with the Durham and the grease traps. But from a practical operations standpoint, I don't know. I've never had to do a grease trap abatement or update. Is that something that can even be done once the restaurant is open in terms of, like, wouldn't they have to close the restaurant for a week or 2 weeks to make that happen?
Yeah.
So,
But also with Durham, and I think this is what the commissioner is saying, when you're coming in as a new business, getting your BTR, you have to go through Durham first before you'll even get a BTR.
right.
We won't issue BTRs without having approval from Durham, and that's where is that what you were talking about?
I'm saying that if you're existing and you've already been through the Durham process, we want Durham to give you the automatic approval with an abatement. Like 2 years later, they better be in compliance, because what they've done is they increased requirements. And by the way, you can absolutely stay home and open and change a grease trap. That's not true. It's not even inside the kitchen.
Okay.
Okay.
I just wanted to understand
yeah,
that.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I've seen abatements happen. When you need one, you can go to the county if you can find somebody there and explain the situation and get an abatement.
So
So
if
it does happen.
Thank you for explaining that. I haven't had to do that yet in my life, so, and hopefully never will have to do that in my
Gross. They're
life.
kind of gross.
Oh, we deal with Durham, I guess, before they're starting and then also during. So-
Okay, so a couple of other points that I just want to clarify. One of the issues that we have is that we have property owners who rather leave their buildings vacant than take in a tenant because they can take a bigger tax loss or whatever it is. So I know in North Beach, we have a number of vacancies of standalone buildings even that have just, nobody's touching them, nobody's interested because they're waiting for, somebody put it to me, who's on the inside of this, they're waiting to get an offer from Target to buy out their land. And so they're just sitting on, and not literally Target, but somebody to come in and buy their land. So they're sitting on what could be really great land, could be used for, in its current configuration with modifications. Our police athletic league has to rent space in North Bay Village because the space where they used to do their kids' boxing program is now sitting vacant and defunct because the landlord, the property owner, just rather keep it vacant. I mean, that's appalling to me. And so I don't know. I know we live in a state that values property rights, and I don't begrudge anybody, selling their property, making a killing. That's great. I mean, everybody who can do that is great. But in the interim, what can we do? And I guess it's more of a legal question for a future discussion of what can we do to encourage in the strongest possible way people sitting on land, on properties, to make them available to people who need or, and even would pay rent. So that's a deep frustration of mine. And I did have a third point, but it has escaped, so I will bother you when I come back with it.
I thought it was a great idea, and I worked with Raquel for 6 months coming up with a property registration. We're not allowed to tax or give a violation to any owner keeping their property vacant. But we worked very hard. The bid was not happy about this, by the way, when we proposed this, because what we were doing was creating a vacancy registration. What does that mean? It means if you're vacant, what did we say, Raquel? Over 3 months, you have to register, okay, on a list. And then we start to charge you registration fees for the longer that you stay vacant. And even though you might see it as punitive and the bid owners did not like it, I think it is the only way, because right now, the reason that those rents are so high and the reason they're never going to bring the rent down, and somebody, a property owner explained this to me yesterday, because I would have never thought of it like this, Commissioner Fernandez, is because they can get more money out of a bank. They can go to the bank, right? And say, we're expecting $1 million in rent per year, with that inflated price that they have on the market, which everybody knows nobody's going to rent something at, whatever it is, $350 per square foot and a 3-year build out. And so they're not going to lower that to $500,000 per year, because then they're going to be able to take out less money on their property. So they're using these vacancies and these elevated rents to finance and pull out large amounts of money. So we're suffering, and they're just playing around with the money, because maybe the properties have been there for generations, which is why I created this with Raquel, this vacancy, what did we call it? Vacancy registration?
I think it was a vacancy registration program.
Yeah.
And just for the record, I think you determined that you didn't want to move forward with it at that time, so we hadn't brought it back.
We hadn't, but we have it, and we worked on it, and it was a lot of work. And if we sponsor it, I think it's going to, in some ways, encourage. It's not heavy-handed. I mean, what did we say? How long do you have to be vacant before you join the club, the vacancy list?
Well, I think, if I recall, there were certain exclusions. So, for example, if a vacant property was going through a permitting process, or there was an existing lease associated with a future tenant, then that property would not be included. But I think it was anywhere between 3 and 6 months.
So 3 to 6 months, and then we can make the fees whatever we want. And this way, if there is this component, they might actually lease out their properties. So if we made the fees punishing enough. So, if you guys would like to look at a copy of it, I'm sure that Raquel can provide it to you. And if you want to bring it back, I would love to bring this back, because I think you will see a difference.
So you're exactly right on the problems about, if you lock in lower rents, you're able to pull less money out. They could even have a mortgage that they would violate a covenant if they actually have a lower rent. For the vacancy tax, or some form of it, intuitively, it sounds like a good idea. It's my understanding that there's some pretty conclusive academic research around the downfalls of that. I'm happy to explore, but I think, especially doing it just kind of off the cuff, would be a bridge too far for me. I would envision I'm not going to be supportive, but that's something that I would study pretty extensively, because this wouldn't be the first municipality to try that. So I'd rather look to real world examples to see if that worked or did not work. Maybe we could have the economic development team do that as well, because we don't have to recreate the wheel here. We can look to see what was already done, and if it was successful and I'm wrong, come back and tell me, and I'll alter my view. But from me following this from afar, I do think there's pretty conclusive research out there.
Mr. Chair, we can definitely come back with the details of the potential program. I know that at the time we did look at other municipalities across the country to see what they were doing, and tried to take some of the best practices. We even called many of them and got feedback, and so we'll be happy to bring it back for a more robust discussion.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I get the point that if a landlord offers a reduced rent, they might be in violation of their mortgage. I get that. But, they too, they can still enter into a lease agreement, and the same way that the city might offer a subsidy or might offer some sort of incentive, they too can offer a subsidy, or they too can offer an incentive, a match, if you will. So I need to see if the taxpayers is putting money on the table, what are these landlords matching it with? And I think that's important, because I get your point. Certainly, there's a lot of mortgages that have been done, and this is and we can't put property owners in a position of violating that. But if the taxpayers are putting money on the table, so should the property owner, and maybe in the form of a match to what the city is doing. So they're not violating the lease, but they're offering an incentive or a subsidy alongside with the city. That way, at this point, they have skin in the game the same way that the taxpayer has skin in the game.
And I appreciate those thoughts and agree largely with them. There must be something that is unique about Miami Beach, because when I look at neighboring cities and neighborhoods and communities, they're not experiencing that same level of vacancy. So we're not the only place with expensive rent, right? I don't think Brickell City Center is cheap, and that's 100% occupied. And I know that that's one single owner, but if you go to Midtown, they just released their occupancy rate well into the 90s. So there's a combination of things that, yes, are unique to Miami Beach, but it's kind of idiosyncratic that we need to work through as well.
If I may, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we do have some data on that. For Miami Beach, as far as Q2, the Q3 numbers haven't come out yet, but our vacancy rate on retail is 5.5% as compared to Brickell downtown, which is 2.3%. Our average rent per square foot, $103. Brickell downtown, $66.38.
There you go.
Can you send me
There you go.
the underlying detail there? Because if you want to tell me that we have a 5% vacancy rate for retail in Miami Beach, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong with the details of that. I don't think there's one area where you could go to, name me one corridor, right, that there's a 5% vacancy rate. I can name you corridors where there's above a 50% vacancy rate. I don't think I could pick a single corridor where I would sit there and look at it anecdotally and say, yes, there's a less than 5% vacancy rate. Please, Annabelle, you want to be recognized?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. Annabelle Yopes, Executive Director, Lincoln Road. I don't know where those numbers come, especially from Brickell. Working in a private developer, I can't imagine Brickell City Center charging those square footages, just again, based on my experience. And we can't really be compared to one private developer versus a district that's public and you have multiple ownership. Now, I can't speak to the other districts. I can only speak to Lincoln Road. I would say we're probably close to 90% leased. You don't see a lot of that because there's leases on the tables or leases being worked on. However, I will say that there's a lot happening on Lincoln Road. Aside from these amazing F&B that's going up, that are paying rents, that are doing fantastic, and we're super excited to have that, not just on Lincoln Road, but for the city. I think this brings a very high level of positiveness to the city. We have a lot of mom and pops on Lincoln Road, and I think everybody forgets that. I can tell you right now, Terra Nova alone is bringing 6 mom and pops. So there is a nice mix, a tenant mix that's coming to Lincoln Road. What happens with mom and pops? They don't pay high rents. They work with them. They work with them to defer rent until they open. But that speaks to that whole quarter on the 800 block. Those are all mom and pops that are coming in. Was one of the asks, if you will, of many of the commissioners is how do we bring some of that eclectic retail mix back to Lincoln Road? Well, it's happening. So I welcome all of you to come and do a walk with us, really get educated on what's happening on Lincoln Road so you understand some of the challenges, not just from the retail side, which is, again, permitting, going through construction. I have one that's right next to Anthropology. She can't get open. So I reached out to Heather and she's trying to help them through. So there are challenges, and you're talking about this is a mom and pop. They started in the antique market and now they converted to an inline tenant. And so that is the kind of activity we want to spur on Lincoln Road. We want to see someone grow into an inline space. And this is a local person who lives on the beach. The challenges with the permits. And it's not always on the city or the port or all that. Sometimes they themselves don't know how to navigate the process. So I'm very happy for the staff to always at least lend a helping hand to walk some of these tenants through the process because it is challenging. So especially when you're a mom and pop, when you're a bigger, retailer, F&B, you're going to have expediters. You're going to have people to help you through that. But when you're a mom and pop, literally, you live on the beach, you want to open up a business here.
Yeah. And that flows through the building department, Ms. Williams? Raquel? Yeah.
So there's several elements.
It's different ones.
So for that particular business, I don't know which regulatory departments they have been interfacing with or what their needs have been, but I know that multiple businesses have to go through permitting and review processes with various departments.
Correct. I mean, they have to go through the different departments. It doesn't matter if you have a small space or a big space. They still have to go through the entire process. The challenging part is these people don't have deep pockets.
No, of course.
So
And
it becomes
I
even
mean, that's why
more.
we're asking these questions
Right.
is so we can simplify this process. Mr.
Right.
Sejas, we haven't met yet, but if you're watching this, your first challenge right here. And then if I could have somebody else take ownership of saying, who's kind of looking at this from the 10,000-foot view? And how do we make this collective process easier? I
Yeah.
would love somebody to sit there and say, I'm going to own that. I mean, somebody from city staff say, I'm going to own that, and we're going to have a better process a year from now.
But I think one of the things that I would just at least like to, have you guys take away is come to Lincoln Road. Let us walk with you. Let us educate you. What is coming? So you understand the bigger picture. What is the current activity on Lincoln Road? So
If I may, there are a couple things. First of all, I remember my third point, so thank you for triggering that. But, the fact that we are providing extra help to the larger businesses or developers at City Hall who already have a staff and a well-trained host of people who know how to do this is counterintuitive. And we need to, as soon as Mr. Sejas gets here, a lot of us have been sort of beating the drum to get a Sherpa, if you will, like you have one point of contact along the permitting process. So even if that person can't give you all the answers, that person can tell you, yes, this is where it is, this is who you need to talk to, let me help you figure that out, like an ombudsman almost, but assigned a buddy as a part of a buddy system. And the fact that that is still not happening is frustrating. It's the smaller businesses who don't necessarily know. I mean, there's somebody who opened up a business in North Beach with, basically a rough plan drawn out on the back of a napkin and didn't know that there was going to be a change of use involved. Because when you are following your passion to open up a, whatever small business, you don't know what the land use policies are. And so a change of use thing is something that would never come into somebody's consciousness unless somebody at some point before said, these are the things you need to look out for before you start. The realtor should have said, the space was a bakery, you now want to make it a knitting shop. There's going to be a change of use for that, and therefore you're going to need to go through some extra steps. But that doesn't happen. So we need to really make sure that we are looking out for the small businesses. The other thing is when we talk about the vacant retail corridors, and I know Lincoln Road is obviously important for so many of us for so many reasons. There are entire stretches of blocks in North Beach that have vacancies. Part of it is because of the Deauville, that gaping hole that should never have been allowed to come down, but here we are. And, we need to make sure that we don't take our eyes off the prize in the other neighborhoods in Miami Beach, because it's not just the tourist destinations, it's places everywhere around the city where we have opportunity to do better by our small businesses. And that is actually where many of them will find a better, more welcoming footing, where there will be a built-in market with local residents, where the rental rates aren't necessarily astronomical. And again, I thought I forgot my third point, so that's going to be the theme of the day.
I think the amount of time between reviews with the building department is our largest issue. Because what happens is you might build out your whole restaurant and the inspector comes in and he goes, you have to move this outlet from here to there. And then the contractor and the architect goes, crap, no, 60 days. 60 days to get them to come back out and change it. And by the way, I have a girlfriend who's renovating a condo right now in Mid Beach. She goes, she was so depressed. They came out, plumbing came out, and it was a different inspector. They changed one thing, and she goes, my contractor looked like he wanted to cry because he wants to move on, and now he knows he's stuck in the system for another 60 days while we're waiting for somebody to come out. Now that, it needs to be like, you get the feedback. You can call, as a contractor, I can call my electrician and say, come out, move the outlet, but I don't get it because I used to renovate myself and we used to have this call-in system and I could call and I knew that I could get an inspector the next day. How did we go from where you could get an inspector coming out the next day to 60 days? And that's the issue that we're having. It's the feedback online and then it's this wait time between the feedback and the fact that every single project across the city has multiple inspectors. So one inspector goes in and says you have to move the outlet from here to there. And then another inspector comes in and goes, okay, that outlet's fine, but look up there at that socket. And you go, what? The other inspector said that everything was fine. So now you have another feedback, and guess what? It gets you in the loop for an additional 60 days. So you're asking why? This is why.
That actually helped me visualize that.
Yeah,
That was good. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to explain to you why would you asked why, and I'm
No,
telling you.
I agree. And if anybody's out there looking at this and saying, oh, what a negative tone, it's because we're not satisfied with the status quo. We want
Right.
to help. We want to get to a point where Miami Beach is a city of yes, a city where our building department picks up the phone and says, how can I help you? Right? Not how can I put up roadblocks? We want a permitting system that is, yes, going through all the requirements and a city commission making sure all the boxes are checked, but helping facilitate business, right? And that's where we're trying to get at. We're not trying to bash anybody or point fingers or say, this is an awful place. We are looking to make this process better because it's been talked about for so long. And I think collectively, you see 6 commissioners and a mayor that are unwilling to maintain the status quo. Maria, I'll recognize you.
Thank you. Well, that was a lot. I'm the interim building director. And yes, Vince Cejas is arriving on Monday. If you all want to meet him, we're going to have a little meet and greet in the morning. There's a lot that we're doing at the building department that we've been working on for a long time. Ms. Lopez is part of the ad hoc committee, which has been overseeing a lot of what we're doing. First of all, I just want to say 65% of all of our permits get issued in 2 reviews. So that's an acceptable amount of reviews. A lot of that has to do with the fact that we don't get the information we need up front, and we're going to work hard to try to improve that, to make sure, that we do get better information up front so that we can have more than 65%, hopefully 75%, and then we only deal with the ones that are really difficult. To your point, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, about the inspectors, we get thousands of calls, of customer service calls, a month. And one of the things that we just recently did 60 days ago is that we have allowed customers to call the inspectors directly. It's been a game changer with the amount of calls that we get into the call center. We've reduced calls in 60 days by 742 calls. And that's a lot of calls. And that's really the biggest thing we did. And we just moved the needle over the last 60 days just with that. But we're going to do a lot of other things. The ability for inspectors to keep coming back to the same place has to do with the amount of inspectors we have. And Vince Cejas is very aware that we need to hire more inspectors, and we're going to bring them back because there were things that were done along the way that removed inspectors from here, and he's going to change that. And he knows a lot of inspectors that he can reach out to because he's very connected in the entire building official world in Dade County. So once we have more inspectors, we don't have the issue of if an inspector is out and he's the one that did the original inspection and you need an inspection desperately, you need to bring another inspector in. We're also going to go through a whole training of these inspectors so they understand what the other inspectors already inspected and approved, so that it's not just, you get there, it's cold turkey, everything is up, is for you to review all over again. So it's a combination of training, hiring, realigning, doing all of that. And when Vince comes in on Monday, he's going to take ownership of everything we've done. And I'm going to make sure that he gets all the information he needs so he can hit the ground running. So we're hoping it gets a lot better than what it is today.
Yep, and Commissioner Gonzalez, give me literally 1 second, but Mr. City Attorney, maybe we could put an item on the City Commission agenda. I'm going to guess that I'll have 4 people that'll prime sponsor this. 90 days from now, let's have a referral to FERC where Mr. Sejas comes here, gives an overview of the building department, the processes, procedures, what's working, what's not, and what is changing.
Yep. And metrics showing
Yep.
us.
We need
Metrics
to get
are
to a
great.
place
Yes.
where you get the feedback from the building department, and when you call, within like 48 hours, you get an inspection.
Right.
So,
We do inspections the next day. So, I don't know, every permit I have found has its issues. A lot of it has nothing to do with the building department. But, we're not here to, put blame on the industry. I mean, that wouldn't make any sense. We want to help the industry and facilitate it for them as much as we can within the code. And that's what Vince is going to focus on when he
And
arrives.
If it's things like the code needs to be simplified, right? Perhaps, okay, we're getting these back and they're incomplete or inaccurate. Perhaps the inputs that we're asking
Right.
for are too complex, right?
Yes.
I don't know the answers, but we're not going to maintain the status quo. So I
Yeah.
appreciate your work as the interim
course.
director and look forward to, having a helping hand in here.
Okay,
So-
you're welcome.
Mr. CFO,
I was gonna.
want to bring us full circle here?
I believe there was a lot of discussion on the item. I believe there's a request for this to, Economic Development gave an update on the topic, but to return to FERC with an update on a vacancy registration program. I believe that was the action.
Yes.
And
Excellent.
Mr. Chair, as part of that, I want to ask specifically, and I've been thinking about this. And I want to see that vacancy registration program, but I also want to see the inventory of vacant spaces on Lincoln Road, the prices that the property owners are charging for rent, the amount of time that those properties have been vacant, as well as a comparison of those vacancy rates and the rents compared to other areas around Miami-Dade County and even here Miami Beach. How much higher is it?
Can certainly come back with that, and to the question earlier about the source of the data, that was a Collier's report. We can also provide additional data when we come back from JLL, Cushman and Wakefield, CBRE, just to make sure, we see the range of the data sources.
You'll have me taking my sneaker express down Collins Avenue and sending you pictures, but thank you, Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez.
and as part of that motion, are we also making a motion to see between this month and the next, if you guys can reach out to Durham and see if we can get the instant abatement, instant approval, and as part of it? I think that's the key component.
Yep.
And by the way, we're always, like, poor building department, we are always going after them, but let me tell you, planning and zoning is not easy, okay? You get stuck in planning and zoning, you can't find anybody to call, and, people reach out to me, and I can get them their approval the next day, but I shouldn't have to be pushing somebody's, not pushing the, like reaching out and saying, hey, they can't get to anybody. So maybe, we just heard that the building department is understaffed. Thank goodness they have a generous enterprise budget where they can hire more people. The question is, why haven't they hired the people? And planning and zoning might be in a similar situation,
Let's hear from them in.
And by the
in
way,
90
our,
days.
our technology, Tyler, is not good. It is not easy. It is not user-friendly. People complain and complain. So, also when we're getting upset about the building department, we have to remember that they also work. I don't know how fire is. How does fire, because fire is a part of this process too. You have to get fire approvals, planning approvals, business approvals, and, sometimes you just get stuck.
I think what happens is that when we talk about the building department, and in general, it's a holistic process. Building department is the receiving end, but it goes through all of these other desks and all of these other departments. And so when we're talking about the building department, we're talking about everything that, planning, public works, fire, everything that falls under that. And hopefully Vince, when he comes in, he looks at that holistically. He's able to come forward with recommendations and improvements that he can report on in 90 days. Because, we don't want ideas, we want the results,
Right.
and I want to see changes within those 90 days. So it's, Mr. Chair, it's 11:42 and you have a big agenda.
Okay,
Yep.
but I just want to make one more recommendation. You're talking about simplification. It's hard to simplify building code because that really comes out of the state of Florida, and it's going to get worse and worse. But our planning and zoning code, have you looked at it? It is insane. And that is what we need to do. As part of this motion, you need to go to the planning and zoning department and say, what are the top 5 things that you guys can do so that people aren't stuck in your department in red tape? Because nobody's even asking that. And that's what we control, and that's what we have made complex. And I know that we've done a lot of stuff, but when you add in the CUPs and we have added so many layers that it's very, very, very difficult. So when you're doing these planning and zoning changes, remember, people are getting stuck there.
And we are going to move on. I appreciate it. One final quick question. Is there one ACM that all of these processes roll up to? Because as my friend and colleague mentioned, when we say building department, I think it is a throwaway term where we're just talking about the holistic process.
Yeah.
Is there one ACM, or is it really up to the city manager that all of this is coming together?
Several of us manage
And
different
maybe that's the
departments.
process.
David
Yeah.
Martinez has Public Works.
Yeah.
And then there's also, remember, there's Environment and Sustainability, which is mine. Building Department right now is mine. We also have
I get it. So I think
planning
we're just too
and
siloed.
parking also.
If only our city manager is overseeing all of those, we need one person, not that any of us have free time, but has more time to essentially consolidate this entire process and look at it holistically.
We're looking at all of that,
So,
Commissioner.
okay.
We're working on all of that. And by the way, the 60 days, I mean, the 65% permits includes everything.
Yep. Okay.
Includes all the departments. So we know how to do it. We just have to make it broader.
Yeah, no finger pointing. This is just
No,
about
I
getting
know.
it better.
I know.
I appreciate it, Maria. So
Thank
let's
you.
move on, Mr. CFO.
Yeah, I'm just going to summarize the items to return with an update on the vacancy registration program, to also bring data on rents and vacancy rates, and to request Durham about a grease trap abatement program. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to add one thing in because it's been frustrating. I noticed that recently every tree that I see has like some weird box built around it, especially when they're under construction. So I reached out and I said, why are we mandating that? I haven't seen that in any other municipality. The cost to build square wooden boxes around trees is exorbitant. It takes time. It's another layer. And that's something, hey, Eric, how are
Were you watching or did you get
I
summoned?
so wait, I have an item on to remove the tree box because why? Why are we doing that to people? Why are we doing that to homeowners? Why are we doing that to business? Nothing's gonna happen to that tree. But yet in Miami Beach, you gotta build a box.
Yeah, yeah.
So wait,
Okay,
so I
okay,
want you to
but,
support
yeah.
it. And
But let's talk, I think you're here to talk holistically.
Holistically, absolutely. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Eric Carpenter, City Manager, happy to be here on this lovely Friday morning. Just wanted to reiterate what you've heard from a number of the folks on the team, that we are committed to making this process a lot more user-friendly. There are some things that we're going to need your help on. Obviously, changes to the zoning code, the planning rules and regulations are a big part of the puzzle. Some of the things we don't have a lot of control over, the state building code, the National Fire Prevention Code, these are things that we have to figure out ways to work with, not around, because we can't change them. But that's why we're making sure that we have a team that is understanding and focused on how important it is, that interface with the individuals that are relying on us to help them get to the finish line, so that we can give them the path of least resistance from where they stand to where they want to go.
Yeah, and be proactive about the things you need from us. Don't have us trying to sit there and pull and pry. And we're not the experts. You all are, so tell us what you need, and you've heard today, you'll get it.
And let me just say this. Oftentimes, we get memos with recommendations, and the recommendation is very big from the administration. I almost have to pull teeth sometimes to ask, on a policy that's coming forward, what is the recommendation of the administration? So this is I'm glad that I'm hearing we need to make changes to the land use code. I need to know what they are, because I have never had someone come to my office and tell me as chair of the land use committee that we need to make changes to the land use code to facilitate this. I am all for it. I need to hear from the administration what those are, because whenever I have a briefing on zoning policy, the recommendation is the administration reviews that the committee analyzes and issue their recommendation to the full city commission, but I never get a real solid recommendation. So from this point on forward, I am going to be expecting on each one of these memos from the city administration a true solid recommendation, favorable or unfavorable on policy, because that's what we need the city administration for. I'm glad that you're seeing it from this perspective, because we need that. We need you guys to give us your expert opinion, but I'm going to challenge the administration on its recommendations when these items come forward. Give us a more robust recommendation rather than a more open-ended recommendation. I want a true up or down recommendation from the administration that's backed with a reasoning as to why.
And that is the clear direction that I've given to my team. We're the professional staff. We're here to make recommendations to you all. You're the policymakers. You get to choose to follow those recommendations or not follow those recommendations, but we will be making them.
Great to hear. Great item, great discussion, and we'll be following up extensively sooner rather than later. Thank you all. Thank you.
Chair, if I may, if I can, going back to the public seating one, MB14, I had the motion by Commissioner Fernandez, but I didn't make a note on who the second was. Can I get a second on that? Okay, thank you. We also had a time certain of 11 a.m.
Yep, let's go beatbox.
Number 10, discuss a potential partnership with Beachbox for the installation of Beachbox kiosks and/or portable lock boxes on the city's beaches, NB10.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Mr. CFO, and Mr. City Attorney. Jerry Libben, I'm here as a consultant to Beachbox, and I'm here along with one of our Miami Beach residents, I'm proud to say, Austin Igene, who I'll be introducing shortly and ask him to tell you a little about the product and how he came about to design it. He is the co-founder and CEO of Beachbox. But I want to just paint the picture for those that may be watching or maybe here as well, because we've met with each of you individually previously. The product that is being specified as Beachbox, and you'll see about it in a video as well, is designed to attack a problem that we have that's somewhat pervasive in terms of thefts on Miami Beach. And as we all know, social media today can be your best friend or your worst nightmare. You can just imagine if you went to a city and went to their beaches and had your wallet stolen or your keys stolen or your whatever it may be, your watch, your phone, you wouldn't have very good feelings about that. And a social media post, I came to Miami Beach and got ripped off and things were stolen, is not in our best interest. So the product that we're going to demonstrate and talk to you about addresses that. And we have police statistics to show where most of this theft takes place. And Austin will go over that as well. But ultimately, what we are here to ask you today is to move the process forward. What we're seeking is public approval from the full commission to install kiosks so that people will have access to rent these boxes. Okay, so we're asking for your permission to have public right-of-way access to install at our expense the kiosk. So with that, let me turn it over to Austin. And if you would, please, Austin, give a little bit of your professional background, which I think is unique to this product as well, and how it came into being.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me this morning. My name is Austin Igene. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Beachbox. Beachbox is a portable safe for the beach to keep your keys, wallet, phone safe at the beach. The box has cameras, GPS, and alarms to safeguard against theft. The box also charges your phone and plays music. My professional background is in risk management and insurance. I have 10 years of experience managing risk for Fortune 500 companies. The idea really came about while traveling. I was in Thailand with 20 friends, and we all wanted to get into the water at the same time. We couldn't all do that. One person had to stay back, and I saw that existed with families, with solo travelers, and with couples. And I said, there has to be something, there's something I could do about this, and this is why I solved the problem. Thank you. So I'd like to just quickly play a video to show you what we're looking to add to the right-of-way.
But that's the kiosk before you saw the individual box.
Thank you.
Austin, congratulations. I believe you're a Miami Beach resident, right? So it's great to see, local people supporting local businesses. One, I'll ask you never to run for commissioner because it's already getting crowded in the fitness commissioner competition, so we don't need any more challengers there. Yeah. Listen, I'll kick it over to my colleagues. I think what I'd like to do is move this along because I don't think there's really a financial impact here. So what I think the neighborhood and public safety would be a better place when we're discussing where this public right-of-way would be. So I think we can move it along from this committee. That's not to say, okay, we're all in support of the entire business plan where it's going to be. I think there's more relevant committees where those more nuanced and granular discussions are better suited to have. I have a feeling Liz is going to tell me how wrong I am, but go ahead. Liz, you know what, before, just so you collectively can answer all of our questions, Commissioner Fernandez, if you had.
Yeah, it's a very unique concept, and I think it could serve a very interesting purpose in our city. Clearly, beach thefts are a concern, and it harms our reputation, and it harms the experience that individuals have when they come to our city and they go to the beach. And we've been looking for years for something to address this. I just have a few questions. Okay. On the item itself, it mentions an LED display for advertising. Does the kiosk contain an LED screen?
So the kiosk is going to be designed once, if we are awarded the rights by the full city commission to install kiosks, we're going to redesign the entire facility at a pretty significant cost. And the kiosk will have the capability of having digital information on the back, because it's not only Miami Beach that we're going to be going. We're looking to take this far and wide. So if you don't want it turned on in Miami Beach, that's okay. We weren't planning to do advertising. When we met with each of you, we told you we were going to dedicate that space to Miami Beach. That's why you saw perhaps sister cities or something else. If the city wants to promote your own events, turn it on. We're not selling advertising.
Where would they actually be located? Where, I know there's specific streets that are under consideration. I saw 6th, 8th, 10th,
and 12th.
And 12th. But where at 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th would this be located?
I think you have a screen. Can we get that on the screen?
Yes, can we pull it up on the screen?
There we go.
So this is in between 5th and 6th Street, located close to the bathrooms. It's on the back side of the boardwalk. This is 8th Street, also located right by the showers on the back side of the boardwalk. This is 10th Street, kind of in that open area where a bunch of crowds walk towards the beach. And then this is 12th Street, very close to the showers.
I want you to know, there's a lot about this that I like. The GPS tracking, the built-in camera, the alarm, the innovative solution to a problem that we have in our city. We have a separate problem in our city. Proliferation of items on our right-of-ways. The other problem that we have is visual pollution, proliferation of visual pollution. And I have to balance that out. I want to be able to get to a point that I can support this, because again, kudos to you, because you have found a potential solution to something that is a big problem in our community. I believe a better placement for these, to where it does not create an obstruction in the public right-of-ways along the beach walk, is put it against existing buildings. So for example, the public bathrooms, that's already there. Put it against that so that we're not obstructing right-of-ways. Not having the LED signage. Those are things that I think, you know, if this item would come back, when it comes back, if it comes redone, then I'll be able to support it. Today, I can't support it in its current form, but I hope you take this feedback so that I can get to a place where I can support this, where it's not taking up too much public right-of-way, put it against the bathrooms, where it's not contributing to visual pollution, where, you know, there's any sound component in this, any noise component, that, you know, is limited to an alarm and there's nothing else, no music. So I want to be able to get to a place that I can support. I owe it to you to offer you that feedback, because you're doing something great. You're offering an innovative solution, and I hope you consider this feedback as constructive, because I really hope we can get to a place that I can ultimately vote for this, but today in its current form, I can't support it.
Yeah, and Jared, Commissioner, before you go, I think I land in that camp as well. I was talking about moving along from the finance perspective, but I'd like to see somewhat almost like a pilot program on a beach, or I'm sorry, a street, before we would say, okay, here's 4 or 5 streets in our highest trafficked areas. You know, so from where I'm sitting here, and if you're not familiar how this process works, you know, maybe you'd be surprised. You're like, wait, Commissioner Magazine just sent it forward from finance, but now public safety is saying, why is it on 4 or 5 different streets? I'm passing along today because there's not a big financial commitment, but like I mentioned before, my comments at neighborhood and public safety would probably very much align with what Commissioner Fernandez said. I'd like to see a more kind of fine-tuned approach where, you know, before we're all lights, you know, green on this and handing over 4 or 5 critical public rights of way, maybe 10th Street, you know, maybe 8th Street, against the bathroom, something like that.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, just as a follow-up, I mean, one of the things that I think, you know, there's going to be a standard rental of $20 to $30 per day. Is that correct? And there's a 25% for city residents. You know, whenever this comes back, you know, I would like to know, you know, is there going to be any revenue sharing with the city? You know, because again, this is utilizing public areas. And so I would want to know, is there any revenue sharing with the city? I know that the Boucher brothers, you know, have a similar amenity. What has been the demand for that? And if there's any market study to support this, because I want to make sure the moment we allow something to go into our right-of-ways, I want to make sure that not only are we entering into an agreement that's going to allow something to be in our public right-of-ways, but I want to make sure that it really does serve, if we're doing something in our right-of-ways, that's going to be and I hate to put it this way, but it's going to be another obstacle or obstruction in the right-of-ways. Well, I want to make sure that it's something that is going to support a demand, whether it be of our residents or our visitors. So I would want to know, how are the other amenities like the aqua vaults that Boucher Brothers have, how is that performing? What does the market studies tell us about how this would be accepted differently? What would be the revenue share with our community should we move forward with it, since we are in the finance committee, just to bring it back into that perspective as well.
Yeah, I'm always for getting revenue in. Commissioner and then Liz.
So just, there's a lot wrapped into that. About 8 items. I don't remember if I'm going to hit them all, but let me try to respond. As far as, the digital backside, if it's against the building, it wouldn't be seen anyway. Again, that was really for the city, so if you don't want to use it, it doesn't matter if it's not visible. The structure will have that capability, because in other cities it will be. Okay, so it doesn't really matter in Miami Beach, put it against a building. Unfortunately, I don't think, and maybe you all, the staff will show us, I don't think there are buildings at all those. There may be a bathroom at 6th and at 12th. I don't think there is anything at 8th or 10th. And I think we had prepared for you today, where the police report shows the heaviest theft areas are. And unfortunately, it's in there, 7th and 9th, and that's what we thought going in between. But if you can identify places that you would put them, I don't think it's a problem for us. So that's one item. In terms of the AquaVault and the success or lack of success with Boucher Bros, they don't use them at all. And the reason they don't is because if you know what the AquaVault is a little kind of pocket thing, hardly anything can fit in it, and it wraps and secures itself on the back of the seats. And because they're required to stack the chairs every night, it didn't work, so they never used it. And they're very excited about this product, and in fact, Stephen Boucher even called this morning and said that we can represent that he's giving Beachbox a trial period out in his 8th Street hut. You should also be aware that for more than a year, Austin has been great at lining up our hotels on Miami Beach. I think there's 5 or 6 major hotels that actually are renting the boxes directly from him and then either giving them or reselling them to their patrons. And this is not only for our beaches, but the hotels are interested in doing this on their pool decks. Theft unfortunately happens on pool decks too.
But that's where, Jerry, there are ways to work this through so that we're not adding more items on the beach walk or beach entries or right-of-ways. You just mentioned, okay, 6th Street and 12th Street, we have public bathrooms already constructed there. That potentially this could go against those bathrooms, built against these bathrooms. You were mentioning 8th and 10th Street, we don't have those bathrooms, but Steve Boucher reached out to you about the possibility of placing it at one of his huts on 8th Street.
Just the product, not the kiosk, just the product.
Well, but what matters is the product, not the kiosk. The product is what keeps people's items safe. Is what achieves the ultimate outcome of preventing the beach thefts. So get this feedback. As constructive, as constructive, please. And I'd be excited to see you guys come with a revised proposal that incorporates some of this feedback.
Yeah, and how would you like to proceed? Because I largely agree, right? I think, listen, I'm happy to kind of move it along, but that's not pledging my unwavering support, because I don't think I'm going to be supportive of 4 blocks, right? I don't think, if you came to me and said, wow, look, this demand is off the charts and we need this across 4 blocks, I'd be like, okay, there really is a need and a demand for this.
Understood.
These are large things. I think we kind of tiptoe a little bit before we kind of jump all in.
And by the way, the Art Deco Welcome Center is at 10th Street. That's where the bathroom is at right behind MDPL building. So there are locations.
There's also one at 6th, is that right?
Yeah, and there's a bathroom at 6th Street. So get this.
Okay.
I'm going to follow the chair's lead on that, on what he mentioned, but I can't support the way that it's presented today.
Okay.
Commissioner Bott.
So I think it's a great idea, and as I said when you showed it to me initially, I share my colleagues' concerns, and the challenge will be to come back and sort of reimagine the business plan a little bit and the locations and maybe tying in with the Boucher brothers. But I would like to hear, Liz, you came up here as if there was a financial implication, so I would like to understand what you have to say about this whole thing before we move it to another group.
No worries, I'll be brief. Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members, Elizabeth Muro, Facilities and Fleet for the record. Basically, somebody stole my thunder, but everything is out there already. So just consider the market study, the demand for this, consider revenue sharing. All of those factors should be considered, is what we have included in the memo. Insofar as if the city does desire to move forward with expanding and providing these portable boxes, what our recommendation for the administration is to have a formal competitive solicitation.
Yeah, so that's kind of leading to my next question, so thank you. So if we have a pilot program at one location or whatever. What I don't want to see is have 12 different vendors, having their own version of this up and down along the beach. So, so there would be a competitive solicitation. That's great. Look, I think it's a great product. I think it's a great idea. I don't love the delivery vehicle right now because, I've been fighting since 2015 to keep kiosks out of Miami Beach in any configuration, as my colleagues well know. So the challenge is to figure out a different distribution system, whether it's against a building or through the Boucher brothers or some other partnering kind of way of doing this. And because I'm not on the neighborhoods committee with a vote, I wanted to get this on the record here.
Chair, if I may, it may sound like if this item is also at neighborhoods, is the item is presented by the vendor, there was feedback given, and if you wanted to close it out here, and that feedback would then be taken to neighborhoods for them to make the recommendation to the commission on whether to engage in a formal solicitation?
Yeah, so are we able to essentially close it out without
Yes.
providing some sort of official recommendation? Just say, okay, we heard, we gave some feedback, move it along to neighborhoods, and, you better incorporate some of it before it comes to the full commission, but we don't want to negatively opine and, kind of muddy those waters before you go to neighborhoods, but we're also not sitting here wanting to jump fully into the pool.
Yeah, so I think I'll show the record that the vendor presented the item and the commissioners provided feedback and the item is closed at FERC. And then you'll go to neighborhoods.
If I may, however, there is the revenue share aspect of it and the market study aspect of it that I do think at some point those elements do need to come back to FERC that are, germane to the purpose of our committee.
Yeah, so maybe we keep it here? Close it out and keep it here? Are those mutually exclusive?
Those would be different things. If it's going to be sent to neighborhoods or it's going to be presented at neighborhoods for them to make the formal recommendation back to commission, and it does go down the path of it being a solicitation that goes out, perhaps the solicitation results come to FERC. I think the city attorney wants to assist here.
Sure. Different paths that can be taken here. It goes to neighborhoods. If neighborhoods makes a favorable recommendation, then the commission can either vote to proceed without a formal competitive solicitation and engage in negotiations for a pilot program, or commission could direct a competitive solicitation. If the commission proceeds with a solicitation, then each proposer will present its terms. If instead the commission wants the administration to engage in negotiations with this proposer, then I think the next step would be to return to FERC to work on the fine points of what the economics of the deal look like.
And if I can, so just dovetailing off that, is then it would be at the commission's direction on how to, if they wanted to completely handle it themselves, or there's some aspect to send it FERC. But I think it sounds like we'll be okay closing this out with the feedback given to the vendor.
Just one comment on the proposed 25% rebate, if you will. In his proposal, if he would have gone through his whole proposal today, you'd have seen that was designed to go to the city, and our expectation was the city, because remember, we're not talking a lot of money here, and he's got huge expenses. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars out of his pocket, okay? And to rent something for $15, he's got to make a living. He's got to pay people. So the idea was to give 25% to the city, which in turn, if I were sitting where you were, I would say, what, I want $1 of that? I would give it all to the residents. And the way the resident discount was going to work was they were going to use their credit card in the kiosk, okay, as opposed to at the Boucher Hut. It becomes very complicated to start on the sand taking credit cards. They register their credit card in the kiosk, and only if they have the credit card registered to a Miami Beach zip code, if the mailing address is not, they don't get the discount. That's how we quantify the beach resident discount. So when there were 33139, 4041, I'm not sure if 38 is anywhere in Miami Beach, but unless their card was registered to one of those zip codes, they wouldn't get it. So it would really be up to the commission to ultimately decide, out of $5 on a $20 rental, do you want $250 and give the residents $250? Would you want to give the residents all $5? If it went to $25, it would be, $6.25, $6.50. But man has to cover tremendous, he's already spent over $1 million to the design point at this point.
And I totally appreciate that. And I wish you the best of success, little girl or boy you have.
No kids. No.
Oh, I thought, oh, come on, Jerry, that was a selling point there. Wish you the best success. It's not our job up here to make sure that this is successful. We're turning over the public right of way, and what we receive in return can't just be, well, you got to help him, make a living.
No, I'm saying you can do with that revenue what you wish, but, we were asked, from Commissioner Dominguez, would you consider a resident discount? So we thought it would be up to you to decide what you want to do with the money we would give to the city.
And just to clarify, on that $20, it would be $5 to you guys if the person wasn't a resident. And then if they are a resident, we want to pass that 5 to.
That's their call. If they don't want to pass it,
we would like to pass it.
And question, this is being proposed as a pilot with a finite end, because what I don't want to get into is, we issue some long-dated contract, and at the end of the day, after year one, we're giving up a very attractive public right of way, and we're getting $1,000 or something along those lines. So are you but that puts you in a difficult position because you have large upfront CapEx, and it may be hard to commit over just a 6-month or 1-year pilot program.
Yeah, I think that's something that we would have to discuss if the commission is inclined to move it to the administration to negotiate. I think that has to get worked out, but you're right, there's going to be a huge capital expenditure, and so a 6-month, it wouldn't make sense to spend the kind of money you'd have to spend to try something for 6 months. Because remember, there's also a ramp-up period for people to even understand what it is. Now they got to go to the bathroom. Well, I wasn't planning to go to the bathroom. I got to go look for something on the bathroom wall. It's going to be a selling job to get people to even understand it. So you may not have any respectable results for the first year until people even understand, as opposed to where Boucher now has worked out an agreement that, at least for a short period of time, I think it's a 3-month trial at the 8th Street hut, which they have, he's allowed to put boxes out there. I can tell you that Austin has had a team out there. Well, it's been raining a lot, but over a 3-day period, he rented an average of 10 a day. So the Bouchers had asked if we could demonstrate over a 2 consecutive week period at least $1,200 of rentals, okay, which he's already achieving, that they would consider investing or consider expanding it to other areas. And then if we continue to increase the revenue in 3 areas of theirs, they would look to potentially invest.
And by no means do I want to slow down a business plan, but in the long run, it could be saving money, because I would love to see kind of a more expanded pilot program like that. Show us what the actual results are over 3 months at the 8th Street kiosk. I think if you ask me what I would feel comfortable moving forward with when all is said and done, it would be something like, okay, our beach contractor there on 8th Street allows you to set up a little specialty stand at his venue, and let's see what that revenue is over the course of 3 months, right? Because I think that's going to be valuable feedback for you, because if you go and say, well, I got to expend $200,000 to construct a kiosk, but I only made $10,000, over 3 months, maybe you kind of change your business model and focus more on the hotels and things like that before making that large upfront CapEx. So let's try and reel this in, land this plane. I think the best course of action is to hear where neighborhoods wants to go with the logistical factor. I really, before I would vote on the full commission in favor, would really need some of these logistics kind of reworked. I wouldn't be comfortable with the 4 different streets. I'd prefer, a 3-month pilot program on 8th Street or something along those lines.
You'll have those statistics, because we're not able to be to the neighborhoods until the December meeting. So we wouldn't be back to you until at least January, which time he will have statistics of what's happening on 8th Street. So I personally would like to see you all, at least move it to neighborhoods as you're doing, see where they come out, and then we'll have the data, and we're willing to.
Let's close this out from finance. We'll hear it at neighborhoods in December and see where we go from there.
Thank you.
Yep, thank
Appreciate
you,
your
and
time.
Austin, best of luck.
Thank you
For
guys.
what you're doing for our city.
Thank you.
We have a 12 p.m. time certain for install playground in Pride Park, NB12. Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, do you want to present?
I have some of the Palm View residents here. Who sponsored the item to give the Pride Park to the Parks Department? Was that-
Commissioner Suarez.
That was, okay, Commissioner Suarez. I know that we were unanimous in that. The residents of Palm View have come forward and said that they would like some playground equipment. The thing I like about installing playground equipment is that Parks does this very well. It's one of our capital improvements that happens quickly. And it's, when we look at it, it's not the most expensive. And I know that Jason can find the funding if he really tries. We have a budget amendment coming up. We have some like muscly kind of equipment, and we thought that right adjacent to it, we met with John from Parks and we could add some additional equipment. I know that the price, and I know that we have Cindy here, I know that there's a little bit of arsenic remediation, and don't panic because it's not toxic arsenic. It was just that at one time it was a golf course. That kind of makes it a little bit more expensive. I don't know, Cindy, do you want to talk about it before we hear from the residents too?
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. Cindy Casanova, Assistant Director for the Parks Department. This item before you is a dual referral to be heard here at Finance today and at the Public Safety and Neighborhoods Quality of Life Committee. As outlined in the memo and as Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez explained, understanding that the Pride Park footprint also serves as a temporary activation area for the convention center, we propose to consider the placement of a children's playground on the northwest side of the park, which is close to the fitness equipment in the park. We identified that location in the memo. We would further vet this location if approved with any effector user department to ensure that it's feasible. We take into account user safety and to make sure that there are no concerns with the Holocaust Memorial or again with any convention center activations. The construction budget that we put together for this project is estimated to range anywhere between, it's expensive, $1,146,000 to $1,766,000, and that depends on the design. The budget includes the playground equipment itself, fencing, landscaping, the shade structure, pour and place surface drinking fountains, trash receptacles, benches and landscaping, and any remediation that would need to go into what Commissioner was alluding to for any arsenic remediation. The range in these costs does fluctuate, and it really is really based on the amount of consideration that we want to put into the design, knowing that this playground will be an essential hub for global activations such as Art Basel. So we don't want something there that's catalog playground. We want something there that's kind of nice and high end. So that's why you have these cost estimates before you. We are supportive of the project. We think it's a great idea. And if it receives a favorable recommendation, we would be happy to add this for consideration as part of a proposed enhancement through the budget process for funding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I love this idea. I love the idea of putting a playground at Pride Park. I think it's something that we should, given the costs, to do something that is really worthy of our city center district, that's worthy of the historic neighborhood in Palm View, and just the vibrancy of this area, it is worthy of this investment and should be put into our capital program. What I also do think is, when I was a kid, the playground I was playing in didn't cost $1.7 million. I mean, it was a swing with a what is it called, a seesaw? Is that what it's called, a seesaw? And it was beautiful. It was simple, and I think we should be taking two routes here. We should be budgeting for something really spectacular as part of our capital program. But I think in the short term, in the interim, why can't we have a playground that is not $1 million playground, so that we do serve the families that are there today? and the people that go there, it shouldn't cost $1 million to get a playground there, Cynthia.
Arsenic remediation.
Is that what it is, the arsenic remediation that's
but
but people are already going there. Like, this is what I don't get. I mean, it was a P lot
Yes.
for decades.
Yes.
And then we did the convention center campus and we converted it from asphalt to a park.
Yes.
So it hasn't been a golf course for at least 50 or 60 years. So I don't understand, how is there arsenic there? I mean, all of that soil is new soil that we put there with the development of the convention center campus. So there's something here that I don't get.
Yeah, as far as the soil contamination remediation, I really don't have a lot of information on that. That wasn't actually part of the cost that we put together for the budget estimates that we just gave you.
So I don't get this. Where's this arsenic coming from? This is something that was done as part of the convention center campus just only a few years ago. How is there contamination on this? Good
Hello.
morning again, Maria.
Hello. It existed from the past. The site has been capped, so you do that with clean soil. When it was a parking lot, what capped it was the asphalt, so that contamination was underneath. Now that it's a park and, you can roll around in the grass, it's been capped, and it was a process that was approved by DERM. So now what happens is any single time you dig, whether you plant a tree, like when we did the 2 big calophyllums, remember that? We dug huge holes, but there's a process for how you replace that soil and how you inspect it. It's got to follow the protocols of DERM. So there is a process for that.
Okay, when we dig.
When you dig.
Okay, so I don't understand how kids are playing there now. I see it all the time outside my office window.
Yes.
So for us to set up a temporary playground while we got $1.7 million for a fancier playground, why? I don't understand the remediation that we have to do. I don't get that. People are playing there now as it is.
Yeah, I think Cindy was referring to the permanent playground where you would be, digging and doing
So
some
can
kind
we-
of footings or foundations for it.
So can we, while we budget the what is it,
6.5.
It was about 1.5.
Yeah.
While we budget for the 1.5, can we temporarily get something there without having to do any extensive remediation? Because the kids are there now.
We can definitely look at that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's what the neighborhood wants. They want to see, an amenity. This is something we have to put through the budget process, I would imagine. So it has to go through the capital program. But in the meantime, you could get something there quickly that it's not going to cost us over $1 million while we budget for something really beautiful and more permanent in nature through the capital program.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can also, so Maria just mentioned, we could also do some really creative programming in the space too, for kids, for families. So there's a lot of options that we could do there.
I'm Brian, I live in the neighborhood, and I'm here with Jessica, and we represent Palm View and a lot of residents that want to see this happen. Right now, the kids are playing on the gym equipment, and it's kind of dangerous that they're playing on that. I met Jessica actually because she and her child were playing in the middle of the street, like with a little toy. There's nowhere for them to walk to go to a playground. So we really do want to see this. We think it's going to benefit us, obviously, but all the surrounding, and including the new hotel. Like, families will be able to walk across the street and play in the playground.
Sure.
So, and what park doesn't have a playground besides, and we have gym equipment. So we really want to see it fixed. Whether it's fancy or simple, I mean, obviously fancy is better, but like, we'll take simple as well. I mean, whichever route.
Well, the thing is $1.7 million for a fancier one. It'll be great to do that. But that's more of a long-term project that I think you can get something done probably relatively quickly that is not of such a high price tag.
That's a good question. So Cindy, what can you get us quickly and not so expensive?
Let us go back, sharpen our pencils, and come back with a cheaper option.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And what I would love to see, and I'm going to ask some questions here, for a 1.7 million, and I'm a father and I'm the biggest advocate for Parks and Rec and things like that. I think, hear me out and tell me if I'm right, wrong, indifferent. we do something simplified in Pride Park, because I look around that surrounding area and there's just not the population density to support a $2 million playground. But you're also not a long walk from Lincoln Road, a long safe walk, actually, right? I would love, and there was a proposal that got deferred on here, for a playground at Euclid Circle on Lincoln Road, which is just a short 5-minute walk there, that could be enjoyed by our residents and visitors alike, and could be such an attraction to Lincoln Road. Instead of having $1.5 million here, $1.5 million here, I'd rather go out and be like, you know what, let's make the coolest playground in the entire city right there on Lincoln Road that is just a short walk away from your neighborhood.
We would support that thing, but just adding on to that, the gym equipment is pretty simple, so also to have it like match in a way would be more reason for a simplified playground
we could look at
too,
that for
so
sure.
it kind of goes together.
Yeah, because money is finite, right? We would love to put the best everywhere.
Yeah.
But I'd rather, you're still a short walk away. Have something right there immediately
Well,
in
you know
Pride
we
Park.
care about Lincoln Road, so we support that.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
And when people are walking down Lincoln Road, in fact, make it so cool where people are coming to Lincoln Road just to use the parking lot, and then they stumble upon our
Playground,
cafe.
playground. Use the playground.
And that was not a Freudian slip, because I hate parking lots.
So if I may, obviously, this would still allow the Design Miami and other major activations that we're committed to take place.
Yeah, that's why we were looking to put it as far away from those activations as possible.
So my view is, because it is a convention center and design destination, the more understated and sophisticated it is, the better it will be. I mean, when you look at the layout of the park, it is a very understated, sophisticated park. And so to have this bells and whistles kind of playground, to me, doesn't fit what the aesthetic is already. And the exercise equipment, as you guys brought up, if you have it sort of like a kid extension of that, so that it can be more immediate, it can be timeless, it's not going to look out of date soon, that it appeals to the very sophisticated consumers who are coming to the convention center for parts of what's going on, and it fits into the overall aesthetic. I think that would be my preferred way to go. And
agree.
and then, maybe part of revitalizing Lincoln Road is by making it a destination with kids who get hungry on playground equipment who then have to go eat at restaurants. So I would be supportive of that as well.
Mr. Chair? So I really commend Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez for designing, because it thinks about our families. I'd support, moving forward with a simplified version there at Pride Park. So I'm happy to make a motion, or if you want to make a motion to put a simplified version. I think sometimes less is more. Less really is more, especially with time. You can get it there quicker. And the one thing I would say, let's try to do it as much as we can to the west side of Pride Park. It's closer to where the homes are at. It takes it away from the larger activations. So as close to.
There's an area right next to the gym equipment, because then that would allow parents to work out while their kids.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And I think we should, try to see if we can do a budget amendment to get it as part of this fiscal year. If it's, this shouldn't be a big ticket item, Cindy. It shouldn't be the $1.7 million playground.
Now, just
We're going to scale it back.
definitely
some
some
swings
plywood,
there.
just sand down the plywood edges, you'll be fine.
I wanted to give you the Cadillac version, but we'll come back with a Cadillac, on the economy side.
Not to overcomplicate things, but you've got the botanical garden right next door. Maybe you can get their involvement in designing something that complements them. I don't know, just a thought.
Sure.
Anything that we do that's going to elongate the process, I would not recommend, simply because if you want to ask them for input, if they want to plant some stuff, we could along the way, and we could give that direction, but I would just go with getting some equipment so that you have a place to go and your kids can play,
If we did a simplified version like this, how soon do we think this would?
We'd have to go and we have to look at what we currently have in the queue as far as the projects that we have underway. But it shouldn't take us that long.
Is this 2025 June?
Maybe.
I mean, it
I don't want to
shouldn't take-
commit to a timeline yet. I got to go back, sharpen the pencil, see what we can put in there, and take it from there. But you'll have it sooner rather than later.
I mean, if this
Cheap and
were-
quickly. I got it.
If this was still 1986, I'd say let's go to Sears and just like let's go buy one and let's just like do a weekend project and put it together and put it there.
We don't want to do a Fisher Price in there.
Can I ask one question? We don't have any GEO bond funding money for this, for parks that we can pull from to do this?
We do have playground money and artistic playground money, but I think it's all been spoken for. I'd have to check with John and to find out what it is
In
that
the
they're.
amount I'm thinking here, are we kind of aligned, $250,000, $300,000, something like that gets us something that is.
Or less.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God.
300.
Better be
look at
safe.
Yeah. Yes.
Better be
But-
safe. I agree.
Yeah, and one, thank you for being such wonderful advocates of the neighborhood.
Yes.
I want you to go away feeling good about this because one, we're looking to expedite it, but two, you have my full commitment that I would love to bring a destination playground to a walkable distance to you on Lincoln Road.
We're all about that too.
Yes.
I'm okay with a destination playground and this playground too, and Cindy.
You get two
work
playgrounds
some magic.
instead of
Sorry.
one.
Cut you down to what,
Get my
20% of the
magic
budget, but you know what? Listen, let's see what we can make happen.
Absolutely.
Thank you. My 6-year-old daughter will be happy.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for coming and
Thank you, guys.
advocating.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I believe the motion is to return to Commission with a favorable recommendation to direct the administration to install a simplified playground at the western side of Pride Park.
As part of this fiscal year. Yes, your favorite
Yeah.
word.
Okay.
If I can, who made the motion, who seconded?
I made the motion.
I'll second.
Second. Kristen, second.
Second.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll do Pride Park Playground next, is that you? Pride Park Playground next, is that you? Are we closed out on that, Mr. CFO?
Yes, and I believe number 11 you said we'll do next?
I don't know the number, but
Canopy.
Canopy Park.
Yes. MB 11, discuss installing shade above children's playground equipment in Canopy Park. NB 11.
How much? I didn't look at the recommend, how much is it, Cindy? There's not so much canopy.
Okay.
At Canopy Park. It's growing in, but in the interim, I've had some parents come up to me and ask for a shaded area. It's just getting hotter and hotter. The sun is burning people and how much can we, how can we do this?
So yeah, Cindy Casanova, again, Assistant Director for the Parks Department. So when the playground was originally designed, it was designed to have the mahogany trees that are there shaded over time. We all know trees take a while to grow. And as it stands now, depending on certain points of the day, it's very hot there. And it's problematic. So we are supportive of the item. Shade structures are not cheap. So we gave you two options of what we could potentially do there. One is partial shade that we would work along the existing tree canopy. It wouldn't shade the entirety of the playground equipment. It would shade some of the bigger elements of the playground equipment, like the elephant slide. And that came in at a price tag of $265,000. The other option is to shade the entirety of the playground, which is at a higher price point, and also would require us relocating a couple of the trees that are there. And that comes in at a price point of $429,000.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
So Canopy Park is part of the development agreement with the Five Alton. Who paid for the construction of Canopy Park?
I believe they did.
Okay, so with all due respect, I would request that we go back to the developer, because this is, either one of these pieces of, expenses are chump change to that developer. And if the park as constructed didn't envision the fact that we wouldn't have tree canopies to provide shade, this should have been contemplated at time of design and development and construction. And so this is just a fix. In my view. And I would suggest that relocating trees is not something I'd be super excited about doing, especially if we are anticipating that these canopies would be temporary while we want the trees to grow in. So I would not be supportive of the city funding this. I would be supportive of the city going to the developer and asking them to.
I agree.
Okay, first of all, then that's killing the whole idea, and now we have, because he's not reopening a development agreement to put some shade in. And now you have a kid's park, and it could take up to a decade to get proper canopy to shade it, and it's too hot for them to use the equipment. So we have all these residents that love the park, but if you notice, there's not a lot of, there are people, sometimes it's just hot, it's too hot. So, I mean, we could, first of all, I mean, I suppose we could approach them, but they don't have, I mean, why would they? They've already ceded the park to the city. When we took ownership of the park, that was the moment where we had to probably say to them, you know, we want a shaded canopy. So if, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about that, but there's a lot of kids that would like to use that equipment, and we have that equipment, but it's not shaded, it's hot. So am I supposed to go back to these parents and say, we didn't want to give you shade and complete the park? Because to me, he's not going to, why would he do that if he didn't have to? And he already ceded the park, and the development agreement is
Why would
finished,
we
and
not
the tower
ask
is
the question?
finished.
And why wouldn't we not just first ask the question without reopening the development agreement? It is an inconsequential amount of money, and why would we not at least ask? We don't have to reopen anything. It's a small, you know, $265,000 is not a big deal.
Well,
So I would suggest that would be our first course of action.
I think his response will be, well, if I build my building taller, it'll provide more shade. But I'm fine with going out and asking the question, but I also think we should think of a contingency plan where if the answer is no, or if there's something else where we say, you're doing this, can we get a shade as part of that? You know, it doesn't hurt to ask, but then it's like, where do we proceed? The answer is no. Commissioner Fernandez.
Chairman, you you're a neighbor of the area. I mean, what's your experience? I know you're a dad, so would value your insights.
My sense is in the mornings when the sun is coming from the east, it's not unbearably hot. And when it goes to the west side, the sun at certain times of the year is blocked by, partially blocked in the evenings from Bentley Bay and the Floridian. However, that's my experience. If other people, you know, say that they want a canopy, perhaps I wouldn't be in favor of moving trees either. So perhaps the best is to go with the scaled down version. I think we asked the developer, both developers actually, you know, the other one actually has a partner on the project, has some more active projects in front of the city. So maybe he'd be more enticed to help us out. But then we also have to contemplate if that answer is, well, thanks, but no thanks. How do we proceed? And perhaps that's, you know, putting forward a request in next year's budget for the scaled down version of the shade.
This is where a while back I had an idea. I'm going to put it out here since we are the Finance Committee. We should have a wish list in our city's website. We are a community of such great wealth, of so many resources. People who have done so well in their careers and come and retire here. And I'm sure that, let's say it's not those developers, you know, there are people in this community, there might be people that live right in front of that park that might have the very deep pockets and the desire to contribute to something like this and don't even know that the city is looking to do something like this. And we should have like a wish list of projects that would be nice to have, but, you know, but we don't necessarily have the money to do it immediately because it's not necessarily at the top of the priority, and people might be willing to put the money forward and contribute to a fund for it. And so I want to work, Mr. Attorney, on an item about that, because this has happened in other neighborhoods where there's things that is kind of like the icing on the cake type of a thing, and there might be people in the community who might be willing to pay for it and get it done. So that the city doesn't have to do it because it's just for the common good. And so I'd like to work on an item on that. But Yeah, I support what, a motion as stated by the chairman.
So you want to bring it back? What do you want to give direction? Is Cindy supposed to reach, who's reaching out? What is the motion?
Is it, if I may, and if the city attorney will jump in if I'm off here, but I think to return to the commission with a favorable recommendation to direct the administration to request a donation from the 5-park developer for a partial sun-shaded canopy park playground. That's what I believe that I've heard.
And if that would fail,
To then return to FERC for further discussion.
well, how about make a recommendation to move forward with the scaled-down version?
Would that be to implement or to make a budget priority during the 2026 budget process?
2026.
I have a question. This might just be, okay. A structure is gonna cost, a shade structure is gonna cost us anywhere between $265 and $429. How much would mature trees cost us?
Oh, I don't have the answer to that question.
Okay, I would wanna know how much would mature trees, cost us. You know, I would rather see us, if we're gonna be spending this amount of money, potentially, whether it be us or a private entity, the goal is shade. And if we can get the shade through canopy, through mature canopy, I much rather see it, whether it be us or whether it be a private person, private entity doing it. So I would like us to consider that, please.
Can I say one thing? You know, when you live, the people on West Avenue live in apartments. And I have to say, when you have a toddler who's, what is that like being in an apartment with a couple toddlers, 2, 3 years old, they're running around, you have to get them out. Do you understand? So to elongate this process, I understand that could be an option that we could find, but like it's a necessity, you know? It's a necessity because they will drive you crazy when you have little kids. Now you've got a puppy, okay? You know? And you might want that puppy to have some shade because you don't want that little puppy's paws to get burned if he was in a puppy park, right? So you don't want these little toddlers who are going to be toddling along and getting sunburned and getting burned on the equipment that they can't use, and their parents are in their units on West Avenue and they're stressed out and they need to get the kids out. I mean, how long are we going to elongate this process? Is it ideal that we have to put shade there? No. But is it a necessity, and should all parks moving forward have some sort of shade so that kids can immediately use the equipment? Probably. So I would ask Commissioner Fernandez that you would reevaluate that request, because I think that will make it take a lot longer. I mean, if you could, as we move the process along, fine. Now we're giving 3 directions: to ask the developer to move forward with partial shade and to find out if we can buy mature trees. Is that what this direction, is that what the motion is? Is that what my motion is? I mean, how long will that take?
As long as Sammy?
If it's about requesting what it would look like for mature trees, I think that would be a discussion probably for green space and public works.
Yes.
They would have to look at that and then come back to FERC to kind of show what that would look like in cost.
And I just think, like, for example, we're gonna have the same issue at Pride Park. You know, when this means we need to look at a matter of just policy, design policy.
Yes.
When we put money towards designing playgrounds, I guess we now need to, we're learning that we need to consider shade as part of playgrounds, because it is getting hotter. Listen, we're seeing it with hurricanes. Why are we having more hurricanes? Because the oceans are getting warmer. And so why do we need shade structures now where perhaps we didn't need them before with children's playgrounds? Because it is getting warmer out there. So as part of our policies, when we design playgrounds now, we know we need to incorporate shade. What I would encourage us is that we consider, when we incorporate this shade, let's not look at structures for shade. Let's look at incorporating proper shade trees. And as our Assistant City Manager, David Martinez, likes to say, not a Charlie Brown tree. I don't want to see more Charlie Brown trees. And that's my frustration with the trees that we installed, they are Charlie Brown trees. And it's frustrating to see their rate of growth. It takes a really long time. The community deserves, real trees to have real canopy. And so I would just say, in this case, to remove any tree to put a structure to provide shade takes us in the wrong direction. I would first like us to see, can we just add more trees there that can provide that shade? So that we're not taking away any of the existing trees.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I'm looking at an aerial view now, and come back with a cost estimate on a mature tree. I'm looking at this, I think one mature tree kind of solves this issue. If you would place it on the western side of the park, could be off, but what would one mature shade tree be? I don't think we need an entire new forest here. It's growing in, the template is there, and let's see what that analysis is with one grown tree, because that is something that we'll have forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Chair, we can, parks can work together with Green Space and Public Works and return to the next FERC.
Sure.
It's a tight turnaround because we have a November 8th, but we'll return with that information as requested.
Maybe the First Street oak trees.
There you go.
Next item.
There you go.
So does that mean that we're not considering the shaded structures at all?
No, I think we just want a return of what one mature shade tree would be. I think the higher version of moving trees wouldn't be my, what I'd be inclined to support, but let's kind of bifurcate this, right? Let's, if somebody could engage in a conversation with the developer about the shade structure, and then if we could have returned, whether it be a finance or to the full commission, about the cost of a single large mature tree on the west side of the playground there.
Okay.
But I certainly don't want to give up on the idea. I think we move forward with one of those two options.
Okay.
So we'll return to FERC with the cost would be for the mature tree, and there could be a discussion, a reach out to that developer to see if there's interest in paying for it.
And maybe someone wants to if it's not the developer, maybe someone out there wants to dedicate a tree to someone that did something spectacular, and how beautiful would that be?
If I might, in Central Park, there's I think this is Central Park Conservancy that allows residents or anybody to gift a bench in memoriam or on behalf of somebody. And maybe that's something that we could consider doing in Miami Beach.
Yeah.
You realize that I have that program. We have a
We have a
park program. You can buy a bench right now for $10,000.
Oh,
We
I
just
did
don't
not-
advertise it. I did that in 2017, and
you
we
did the
sold
bricks,
sold
too.
several benches, and then we raised the price to 20,000. We didn't sell any benches, but we do have the program, correct?
So maybe there's an opportunity to expand that program to, benches and other playground
trees,
equipment and
yeah.
trees and, sort of broaden scope.
I believe there is one also for trees, I believe.
I think
Yeah,
that
we
there's a
do have it.
commemorative tree program,
There's a
yeah,
commemorative
but it's
tree,
not run by
commemorative
our
bench.
department, yeah.
Actually, we even have a commemorative brick. You know what the problem? You can even buy a commemorative brick on the beach walk that I did. But what happens is, I'm not in charge of marketing, and the city doesn't necessarily. I don't think we market it that much. So those programs are all there, are they not?
Yes.
They're all in place. People
Why
just
don't we
don't
ask,
know.
why don't we ask the communications department to put it out there? Does someone want to sponsor? I don't know if it's legal, Mr. Attorney, but can we ask the communications department to ask? Does anyone want to dedicate a tree at Canopy Park in honor of someone? And we can go ahead and put a tree there. That's now a living memory to someone's, an honor to someone's
And
contributions.
I would suggest that it might behoove us to re-examine the programs we do have and maybe roll them into one bigger program that we can reach out and sort of reintroduce the community to, so it is still the same offerings, but it's expanded. And so whatever your interest is, whether it's trees
We
or.
have them. We
No,
have all three.
I know, but roll them into one together and re-announce them to the community so that people know it's there, so that it's not like, oh, I have to go over here to find a tree, or, gee, I want to do something nice for Miami Beach. What are my options, right? So that it's a one-stop shop.
Okay, so I think we have two separate motions here. One is to ask the developer for a big tree. And the second one is to roll all three programs into one and have a marketing campaign so that people know that they exist. Would that be your motion?
Yep.
Okay. I will, I guess, second that motion. And let's see what we can make happen.
So if I can, so that we will not be returning to FERC then with the cost of the tree. If there's a motion to request a donation from the developer for a large tree, and obviously the return to commission, and then to direct administration to amend the commemorative programs that the city has, and to reinvigorate the marketing of said campaign.
Okay. By the way, that's a much easier ask, asking them for one tree rather than asking for the shade structure.
Yep.
And listen, I'm so excited about, marketing these ideas. It's in the back of my head always, like all these programs exist and we haven't marketed. And when we did market them, we started to sell them. And we were selling a lot. We sold 2 so quickly, and I was like, maybe it's too cheap at 10,000. But we followed the Central Park Conservancy model when we created the program. I think the coolest thing is the commemorative brick on the beach walk, because we need, like, it would raise so much money, and it's like nothing to pop the bricks in and out. But I feel like where's Public Works? Where are they? Where's Eric? Eric was in charge of that brick program. It's not that hard, is it, to change a brick? Yeah. So, okay. So I think with some marketing, we could actually raise a lot of money with these programs, especially the commemorative tree program and everything else. So.
And by the way, Commissioner, you have an email list with a great circulation, because people read it, and maybe I would encourage you. Yeah, put it at the bottom of your emails, because a lot of people do read your emails, and that's another avenue in which local residents can find out about it.
If I may, let my office look into the propriety of commissioners including solicitation for donations in their emails, and I will report back.
This is not a solicitation. It's just a simple advertisement, because I'm not receiving anything at all. They are purchasing a bench for themselves. I have nothing to do with it. It's not a solicitation. It's a city program existing. And they were not easy to get past. I mean, it was like, you would think it would be easier to get a bench,
I understand,
buy a bench or tree.
But, all right, I will look into it and let you know.
And just to reiterate, this is motion by Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez, return to commission with a favorable recommendation, direct administration to request a donation from the 5-park developer for a mature shade tree at Canopy Park, and to combine the various commemorative programs and to reinvigorate the marketing of said programs.
Yes.
Yes.
A second?
Second.
Who was the second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Bott. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And before we move on, just while we're on this topic, I was going to bring it up at the commission meeting. I've been kicking around an item that I'll introduce, but I want us all to be a part of it and all to start thinking about it, is I've termed it the Miami Beach Legacy Project. And to your point, Commissioner Fernandez, between families that have been here for 6 generations and new families that are here, Miami Beach has benefited from some of the largest wealth migration in the entire world. And perhaps putting together just an iconic legacy project. I think along the lines of, if anybody's familiar with Little Island off of the West Side Highway in New York City, it was $125 million. It is iconic. It's incredible. So if we could get 20 of these prominent families, the Beckhams just bought a house on North Bay Road for $90 million. Significant donations to our city for a project that will last a lifetime, that truly the entire community embraces. I don't want to be the sole decider of what that project is. I'd love for us all to collaborate on something like that.
Okay. I think it's great. I think it's aligned. There is money in this community, and not everything. There's icing on the cake projects, and I think there is money out there that is capable of and willing to support it if they were to be engaged and asked. So I love your idea. You can do big legacy projects, and they can do small things like a tree for shade. Because there's people that are able to contribute in different amounts. And I see the Inspector General nodding his head, so I hope that means that it has a blessing on it. It reduces waste, Mr. IG.
Okay, so speaking of that, let's, since you invoked his name, Commissioner Fernandez, let's go to NB9.
NB9.
MB9, referral to the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee to discuss potentially enacting a red flag ordinance requiring the Office of the Inspector General to review City Commission agendas and make recommendations concerning all agenda items that will likely result in an expenditure of greater than $100,000. MB9.
All right, so this is an item that I placed on the agenda because the Office of the Inspector General serves an important function, and it's there to avoid fraud, reduce our risks of fraud, waste, abuse, misconduct, and other types of mismanagement. We oftentimes end up with very large price tags on our agenda items that cost a lot of money, or items that are significant in nature. And what this item proposes is that the Inspector General review all of these items with an expenditure greater than $100,000. And in his review, the Inspector General would pretty much have to raise a red flag if it is determined by the Inspector General after consultation with the city attorney that any action that we're about to take would violate any of the city's policies, any of the city's procedures, any ordinances or other applicable law. It would also require the Inspector General to notify us if there's going to be any significant negative impact involving waste, involving fraud, involving inefficiency in connection with any city programs, with any projects and any contracts or expenditures. It will make sure that we find out about any concerns like these that the Inspector General may have before we vote on something, rather than after the fact. And I think that's important to our taxpayers, important to our community that created this office and placed this trust in the Office of the Inspector General, for them to know that the Inspector General is looking at our agenda, that is reviewing these big price tag items that we are about to vote on. And if he detects or has reason to suspect that there's any abuse or inefficiency or violation of policies or procedures or any other type of applicable law, that he now feels that he has the obligation to raise that red flag and help us make the right policy decision when it comes to these matters. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Inspector General. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, Joseph Santorino, Inspector General. I appreciated the Commissioner Fernandez's original proposal in the sense that he was really trying to, maximize the value of the office. And there really isn't anything in the ordinance, the enabling ordinance of the office that really, gives any sense of how the office should interact with, on a less than formal basis with the administration, with commissioners and so forth. We have procedures where we're often, tied up with confidential matters, and where sometimes, we try to put a lot of work into the reports that we put out, whether it's an audit or investigation. Often we can't really comment on things because of confidentiality. On the other hand, there have been times when we have felt compelled to, to advise the administration or advise commissioners about, hey, before you vote on this, you really should know this. And sometimes those conversations have had to be confidential, just by the nature of them. Sometimes have been able to speak a little more openly. But anyway, what I think we worked with Commissioner Fernandez on this, as well as your city attorney, who I appreciate his input on this, to try to come up with a structure that would maximize the value of the office, that would provide us with the flexibility to decide how are we going to, on any given matter, how are we going to engage with either the administration or commissioners when we think that there's something that they really need to know before a decision is made, before a vote is taken. At the same time, respecting the independence of the office, because under the city charter, under the standards that we operate under with the Association of Inspectors General, we have to have the flexibility to decide what are we going to look into, what are we going to speak out on, what form that's going to take, what the content of that is going to be. So we did work on this this ordinance somewhat, and we came up with the 4 kind of provisions that we have regarding notification, regarding violations of the law, only in consultation with the city attorney. We can't be, I don't think we should be giving legal opinions, whether something is legal or not, without the city attorney's advice. It would create chaos, I think, if we had it any other way. And we also to notify when we think, there's some problem that you should know before we are in a position to put out a public report, that you should be aware of, that maybe there's an audit going on, that, before you decide to adopt to ratify a contract or extend a contract, maybe you should know, maybe you want to wait until the audit findings are out. That would help you. We're all in the information business. That's our lifeblood. We're only as good as the information we get and the information we're able to put out. And you're largely in the same business. I mean, you have to make a lot of decisions that require an enormous amount of information that you have to absorb and process and decide what to do. So to the extent that we can add to that information and clarify certain things, I think it's helpful to you, and also it helps, I think, maximize the role that we are supposed to play under the city charter. So I appreciate Commissioner Fernandez's work on this, as well as the city attorneys. I think we came up with something that we can live with, and it gives us somewhat of a structure which shows how we can and should at times interact with the elected officials as well as the administration.
Thank you, Mr. IG. And I actually, I don't want to speak for the IG, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he was actually very excited when I initially proposed this, because it's almost a lot of extra responsibility to the office. But I do think, listen, I brought at times items that maybe over 100,000 that would fall under the scope of review of this item. And I don't know, the Inspector General could review it and have concerns with it, or say it's a redundancy of resources, or say that there's more efficient ways to do things. And if that's the case, so be it. We need that feedback. We need that watchdog over our expenditures, over our government. I think it's a big reason why our electorate created this office, and I believe in the purpose of this item. I think we need to govern in the present, thinking about the future. We don't know who could be sitting in this dais on the future. We don't know. We just don't know, and I think that this helps ensure public trust in our expenditures as an elected body. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So in my experience, we already have a fiscal impact. Then we have to get the city manager's recommendation. Then we have to speak, it has to come here to committee. We have to make sure that it's legally sound. We now have a lobbyist. We also have to disclose if we were approached by a lobbyist. And I'm gonna ask, how many more things do we need to put? How many checks do we need? Do we need 20 checks? Because I think between the lobbyist disclosure, the fiscal impact statement, going to finance committee, assuming that we all have a fiduciary to our constituents, I mean, they're just wrapping us in red tape. You're just gonna wrap it and wrap it and wrap it until nobody can move. It's enough. And by the way, he's conducting, how many audits are you conducting right now?
There are audits, yes.
Yes, multiple audits. We're meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, and we have to realize that in addition to looking at our agendas, they're trying to work on other projects. So if we really want this department, now that we took the auditing function away from the city manager and the auditing function is under the Inspector General, I would say that we have enough checks in place, and that this is a massive job, and that he would take his job tremendously seriously, and he would be going through this all the time, and we would be paying one person for a fifth check on something that has so many checks already, that I think that it's sufficient, in my personal opinion.
And thank you, Commissioner. And I'll say that this isn't necessarily another item on the agenda. You'll notice that this ordinance doesn't amend our agenda procedures or what agenda items should show. This amends the enabling ordinance of the Inspector General so that he notifies us. He can call us, or if he wants to issue a written recommendation as to something that involves waste, fraud, abuse. But right now, it doesn't, there's nowhere that says that. There's no one. So what happens, like, for example, we were doing the issue with the waste haulers, and the Inspector General felt that there was a violation of process potentially. And it wasn't until after we cast our vote on that the Inspector General came forward and told us that. And I'm sorry, as an elected official, if I'm going to cast a vote on something that's going to affect our electorate, or our budget, and the governing of our city, and the IG, who is the watchdog of our government, has a concern over that, I want to make sure that the IG is empowered to come forward and to raise that red flag. I think that that's why people created this office. And so I understand your thoughts about it. But I think the Inspector General feels comfortable in how this has been written, not to overburden his office, not to create an expectation that the IG has to, issue a recommendation on every single item that's on the agenda. And if you would like to respond to that, Joe, you're welcome to.
There may be a misunderstanding. This is not the original proposal that we're working with right now, not the, the checkoff on, items over a certain amount.
That was my initial request.
And not that wasn't well-intentioned, but it would be beyond our capacity. We are a minuscule part of the city government compared to the administration, which works on all of these items extensively. So it really wasn't realistic for us to be able to, in a week or two, to come up with an opinion on things like that. We just don't operate that way, and we couldn't, I think. But what the ordinance that we provided, which is a substitute for that, would provide a means for us to give you information. I don't think it would require, it's going to obstruct anything, frankly. It just provides you with information that you can utilize maybe in making a decision. And you can ignore it also. It doesn't mean it doesn't require that you not do something. It just gives you additional information that you didn't have. So I would say it just empowers you and facilitates maybe some of your decision-making. I don't see it as any kind of obstruction whatsoever.
Joe, practically, walk me through how this works, how you're envisioning that this works. So we essentially, the agenda gets printed the Wednesday before commission meeting. What happens? What are you doing? How are we interacting?
This is not tied to any particular agenda action. This is just, this provides several means for us to communicate when we can, and when we have information we think would be important to a decision. It's our discretion to come forward with it. We're not going to be commenting on all, anything by, that by requirement, but we have to retain that independence and the discretion to say, okay, we need to let them know about this. And it can come in different forms. Doesn't mean it's not going to be, it may not be public. I may meet with the city manager, or with the mayor, or with one of the commissioners who might propose something and say, look, before you go ahead, you might want to know this. This is some information that you might want to have.
I know I'm catching you off guard here, but do you have any examples of past things where if this legislation was in place, you're able to sit here and say, you know what, this would have went differently. We would have been able to do this.
Well, it's already happened on occasion. I hesitate to mention too many things specifically, but there's an item right now that's going on. I think I can say this much publicly regarding the marina. All right, there's a pending audit we have on the marina, and I have advised the administration and a couple of commissioners I think know about it also that our suggestion is before you make a decision on that, you should get the results of the audit. All right, I think that it would be helpful to to know what that information is.
I'm glad we deferred it today.
And in the past, have there been others in the past?
Yes, there have been time to time, but frankly, we've struggled with it because, confidentiality is important. And if we're going to speak confidentially with somebody, we're going to have to trust that it's going to remain confidential.
But then in the past, you've also been accused when you've spoken up on something, and it's.
We were accused no matter what we do.
Well,
so-
but it's jeopardized, it's jeopardized the office in the past.
Yeah.
That because you may have spoken up against something, then your office becomes a target of political retribution. When this would say, like, I don't know how it would be wrong for us to say that the Inspector General shall notify us or the administration if there's a violation of city policy, of procedure, of law. Like, wouldn't we want to know that there's a violation of law before we cast our vote on something? I mean, we want to know that, and these things could happen and fly under the radar, or be notified if the Inspector General suspects that there or has determined conclusively, in fact, it's not even suspect, has determined conclusively that one of the committees or the commission is about to take a vote on something that's going to negatively impact, waste, that is going to create fraud, that could potentially create inefficiency in our programming or in our contracts. I mean, this is what the office at the IG was created for, and shouldn't feel retribution when they speak up for it. And I think we need to make it clear that we want them to speak up before we cast a vote, tie our name to a vote on something that could be doing this, because they do serve the purpose. They should serve the purpose to promote integrity and efficiency in our decision-making process. And this empowers them to do that. And I can't say here confidently that in $1 billion budget, or a budget that's approaching almost $1 billion, that I know for sure that in my own independent review of each one of these items, that I know that there's not waste going on, or potential abuse, or a potential inefficiency. That's a resource that the IG can assist us with.
So I appreciate the spirit of this, for starters. I applaud you for bringing this forward. Question for me is that the legal correctness of an item, doesn't that get handled, Mr. City Attorney, not to put you on the spot, but wouldn't that be something that goes through your shop and presumably would be caught?
Sure, but because of the unique position that the Inspector General has, he may be aware of a situation or a matter that I or my office is not aware of. And so this intends, certainly, and he would consult with the Office of the City Attorney if there's any question of law or a violation of law, but he may be aware of something that I have no knowledge of. So this is protective of that type of situation.
And Commissioner Fernandez, your intent, because my understanding is the OIG can do this anyhow, but your intent is to codify it so there's no threat of retribution or shenanigans that get played by people who might
Yeah, like
get caught
taking
up in-
funding away, taking staff away, eliminating the office. I mean, this should be expressly defined as part of the responsibilities of the OIG. And right now, it's not necessarily expressly defined that he shall notify us of these things before we cast votes on a government that handles such large, high-profile, often controversial issues that are important to the public, and not just important to the public, but important to the public trust, which is important as well.
So, but how would it work practically? Just help me understand how this would work. So the commission agenda item would be published the Wednesday before, and then in those intervening days.
This is not the original proposal, which I think you're probably looking at, that we talked about us responding to certain items on every agenda. This is not it. The attached to my memo is the ordinance, which has 4 sections to it that we worked on with the commissioner and with the city attorney, which just provides the structure under which we would interact with the commission on things in regard, and it deals with things like, asking us questions. I mean, I know that sometimes people feel, well, we shouldn't interact too much with them. We're open to a commissioner, and then some commissioners have done this, calling us up and just saying, tell us what you know or what you can tell us about this, or, just asking for an opinion sometimes. We can do that. I mean, we can do that, and it gives some flexibility to the process, and I think it opens up the channel of communication. It doesn't.
And let me just add, and I'm sorry, Commissioner, through the chair, just, I think something important to keep in mind here, a lot of this is at the discretion and judgment. So that to communicate with us at his discretion and judgment. So sometimes it might be written in public, and other time might be communicating directly with us. But if there's something that he is aware of, an audit, something that's non-confidential in nature, that he can share with us, that we should be aware of, so that we don't step on the, well, you know what, before we cast our vote, we should be aware of that. Because otherwise, we're going to be in positions of like, well, I wish I would have known this before I voted on something. And in the past, when the IG has done that, the office has been placed at political risk.
I like the spirit of your item. I'm going to reiterate what I initially said, that I don't necessarily think that this needs to be a codification and this is part of your already job description. Also, the subjective nature, I trust our city manager. I trust our lobbyist disclosure. I trust the administration that's making our fiscal impact statement. And, and I think that also, Mr. Santorino knows that if something red flags, when he hears it in committee, I think that he's already going to do this. In the spirit of keeping our code simpler, we expand and expand and expand our code with things that are already being done. And in my opinion, while, it's a nice gesture, I don't think it's necessary. And also, there's the political nature of this. You have a city manager who's voted upon, and you have an inspector general who's voted upon. And while sometimes you guys have gotten along, there have been times where you haven't gotten along. So, I don't think that we need this. I mean, to codify it, because I think that that's his job already. He's supposed to be, red flagging these things. Who knows? I mean, I've seen crazy things come out of the office, like Turkeygate, like things that you spent hours and hours and hours upon compiling information like that, and I just don't, because of the political nature and my institutional and historical knowledge, I would say that this doesn't need a codification. I mean,
Okay, that's
I'm going to be a
fine.
no,
We
but
can vote against it.
I mean,
That's fine.
well, here's the thing. I mean, I don't want to vote against something that's ethics, but I want to vote against like adding more pages to our code that aren't going to make any changes.
May I, through the chair?
There's 4 paragraphs that we're adding to the code. It's not pages. It's just 4 paragraphs.
Would-
And our code does, how many thousands of pages is our code, Mr. Attorney?
I will have to get back to you on that.
It's 4 paragraphs that we're adding to our
But I'm saying we
code.
just add and add and add and add and add and add and add, just like, let's simplify it.
Commissioner Bott.
So I think maybe a way to split the difference here would be to codify the part about no retribution, maybe.
I think, Tanya, if you're not comfortable with this, you can vote against it. But I don't think there's a splitting a baby on this. We either want to be able to, for the Inspector General to feel comfortable in helping us maintain a transparent, accountable government that has high levels of integrity, or not. And if you don't feel comfortable with this as it's written, that's fine. You don't have to go for it.
But my point is that I feel like that's already.
Why are you forcing a vote?
That's
I'm not forcing it.
my feeling is that's already what the Office of the Inspector General should be doing. And if my concern is about, is there any pressure to in the past, historically, there being retribution or bad blood or whatever, do we protect that? But I'm not sure, I'm not understanding how this gets us more ethically correct, if, given what, I'm always going to say yes to more ethics and transparency, but I'm not sure how this accomplishes that if it's already what the office is supposed to do. And that's maybe just because I'm not understanding.
So, Mr. Santorino, can you explain that?
Well, let me just, there's, as I said before, there's nothing in the ordinance now that lays out that the Inspector General should ever talk to anybody, all right? So I'm not gonna be here forever. The next person in this office may look at it and say, look, we're independent. When we put out a report, you get the report. I'm not talking to you otherwise. They could do that. It's not required. This does give a pathway for that kind of communication to take place when it's appropriate, and it isn't going to happen that often. But, I can tell you there have been times when I've struggled with the idea of, should I say something? Should I not say something? We have a pending investigation. We have a pending audit. It hasn't been completed. Can I say anything to anybody? And, I sometimes have said things confidentially to people, and helped somebody, but there are times when I haven't. So this puts it in writing, and so the next person in this office says, well, okay, this is what they expect. This is what I should do. I should make some information available when I can, without damaging an investigation, without violating any confidentiality, and so it means that there probably will be more information. I don't see it so much as an ethical matter. I think just information that will get to people who should have as much information as possible before making a decision. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate the inside joke, Commissioner Fernandez. I'm going to be supportive here. Do you want to make a motion, see where things land?
Sure. Yeah, I'll make a motion to send this to the City Commission.
I'll second.
I mean, we're not going to vote, it's hard to vote against anything regarding ethics. That's fine. I don't understand the retribution clause.
This is not on the ethics ordinance. This is on the enabling ordinance of the OIG. Colleagues, we're colleagues. If someone wants to vote against this, I don't hold a grudge if someone wants to vote against something like this. You can vote what you feel you need to vote. If you don't feel comfortable with it, you don't have to vote for it.
Where does it say that there's no retribution for the OIG? I don't, where's
That's
that?
not in the ordinance. There's nothing about retribution in the ordinance.
Oh, I thought it was like an exemption of all retribution. I mean, that's fine, I'll be supportive of it. And I'll see, what my colleagues say at the full commission. And I would ask this body, to think about simplification of the code.
Chair, we have a first and a second. Yes. Take the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Crazy. Mr. Chair, I know city administration is requesting to hear item number OB5.
Yes, thank you, and I'll spare us from reading the entire title. But OB5 is an item related to design engineering services for living shoreline and seawalls, OB5. And we have procurement here. Thank you.
How are you?
Good morning, Christy Bada, Chief Procurement Officer. So this item was here at the September 20th FERC meeting, and it was referred to the administration to revisit the city manager's recommendation. And we're back still supporting the original recommendation that was presented to commission on the July meeting.
I'll move the item as reaffirmed by the administration.
Okay, I second.
Thank you. So we'll go back to the full commission.
So we'll the motion will be returned to commission with a favorable recommendation on the item.
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez motioned and Chair Magazine second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, I think it's such a cool item, the Barbara Hulinicki Art Deco Pastel colors. Would we like to hear this? And were we looking to stop at 1:30 today? If so, we can hear this
Last item then?
Yeah.
Okay. NB4, discuss establishing a match funding program to incentivize building owner participation in the Hulnicki Art Deco Pastel Colors Initiative, NB4. Thank you.
So it's interesting. I had a property owner from Washington Avenue in my office yesterday who said that she's had to decrease her rent from $55 per square foot to $35, and that she's making less money now than ever before, and that instead of her tenants paying the rent at the beginning of the month, they are now trying and struggling to pay their rent at the end of the month. And you know how she purchased her property and renovated on Washington Avenue in the 80s? She received, and this was in the 80s, a $15,000 grant from the city of Miami Beach, and that's the only reason she purchased and improved her property on Washington Avenue. So this is an item to try to get people to paint their buildings. And not just come to us for informational purposes, but do some sort of matching agreement in terms of, we're not offering them. If you took the $15,000 that we gave in the 80s when Washington was struggling, right? And you look at what's happening now across the historic district, this is paint. Now, and so if a property owner comes forward and says that they would like to work with Ms. Hulnicki to design or repaint their building, what we would like them to do is, have a consultation with her, then, go get an estimate, and it would be matching. Property owners and city match these funds to create, something new and interesting and beautiful and exciting and expand on this project. So I don't think it should be just, I met with the finance director who said, we're gonna suggest informational at a time when, we want, information. I don't think that that's what we want to, what I would like to do is have property owners come forward with their invoice, because I think that if the city can't do the painting, you've seen, we just got quoted how much for a playground. We're overquoting. I would like property owners to move forward, have some sort of consultation with, Hulnicki to decide on some sort of color palette, or use our existing color palette and then give us an invoice and we match it and see if we get any takers, and maybe we'll see a revitalization of stuff, and maybe we'll get done sooner. We started working on the Colony Theater project with Barbara Hulnicki almost a year ago, and we are still not there to repaint it. So, so I would like to, and the city has been wonderful, and we're picking out awnings and we're doing stuff, but it's a lengthy process. So I don't know how you feel about this, but these small amounts of money, grant monies, that we would help, that we would do matching with the property owners. I'm just trying to find incentives to beautify at a time where I walk down the street and it doesn't look so great, so in conjunction with other stuff. I don't know how you feel about this, but I think that this is a win-win.
I think this is very cool. Are you envisioning commercial and multifamily buildings? And are we going to consult her for each and every one, or do we kind of simplify it and have her put together almost like a sample palette of what would be acceptable, or is it going to be her consultation building by building? I'm going to be supportive of this. Would just love to learn some of the details. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Raquel Williams, Assistant City Manager. So we incorporated a few options that could be layered together as part of this program. One of them includes the city participating financially in having these buildings painted. We haven't recommended a match level. So, for example, in the North Beach CRA, we have a facade improvement grant program where we do a 70-30 match with a cap of $20,000. Of course, depending on the size of the building and how much paint is required, a 50-50 match could be very expensive. And so we want to be equitable if we go in the match direction and allow for multiple buildings to be able to participate. We also propose to have an educational campaign that could incorporate what you just suggested. Maybe we have some template color mixes that we showcase, and property owners can take a look at that to give them some ideas and inspiration for what they could do for their own properties. We also have an opportunity to get maybe a third-party sponsor or donor to contribute to a fund that could assist the city and the property owners with these expenses. And then, of course, we have the Colony Theater, as mentioned before, as well as the Ocean Rescue Headquarter building that we are going to be painting with the Barbara Hulanicki consultation in the Leonard Horowitz color palette. There would have to be dollars allocated to pay Ms. Hulanicki for her services. So I'm not sure to the extent that she would be utilized for each particular building, but we do not have any funds allocated at this moment. This would be something that we would ideally try to establish for a future fiscal year because we don't have a funding mechanism at this time.
So I have no problem with we already have color palettes that even Hulanicki has to go through. We don't necessarily have to use Barbara on these private buildings because that would get too expensive. We're using her on the public buildings. If we wanted to lower the consultation fee on the private buildings and have the owner decide whether or not he could work with her or not, but we consider doing the matching. Also, when you're doing the 70-30 split in North Beach, is that 70% that the owner's paying and we're paying 30%? Or what is the split in North Beach?
So for North Beach, we're contributing up to $20,000, and so the owner needs to put in 70%, and we're putting in 30%.
I was envisioning like the smaller buildings along, I didn't really think about like massive buildings. I definitely want us to do a match. I guess you can go back and figure we could do what we're doing in North Beach. How many people have taken advantage of it in North Beach?
So we have 7 applicants to date. 2 of them have already been approved by the North Beach CRA board.
Have any been completed yet?
Not completed yet, no.
Okay, so
and one of the requirements includes that the property owner has to get quotes for the services, so they couldn't just, pick someone to do the paint or the facade or the awning or lighting. They would have to get quotes that we would then review, because we don't want anyone to take advantage of this opportunity and, just pay anybody to do the work at a crazy price.
So why don't you follow the North Beach model? You could do the 70-30 also, cap it, and we would have to go and see where we get the funding. But I think that investment in our historic district is so critical, especially with the vacancies. I want, it's interesting. When I was on Lincoln Road yesterday, they get requests for like different like large businesses around the world. Send requests. And some of those requests have not been going to Lincoln Road. They've been going to Brickell City Center and other places. I want retail and restaurants too to walk around and say, oh, there's something cool happening here. And the reason we started this was because I thought of Wynwood and the Wynwood Walls. Without the city contributing, and they did contribute to these private business owners to create those murals, nobody would have ever gone to Wynwood. And those walls got so much press and there was so much buzz surrounding them. And I almost feel like at this point we need something like this. These programs are going to take years to implement and see anything. What? Okay, that would be my motion. Do you want to just come back with it? Do you want to bring this to the commission, or do we have to come back here? How would you guys envision this?
Whatever's the desire of the committee, I think we can come
It
back
could,
with greater
if
detail.
I can, it could return, if there's that direction, to come back with a specific program with a budget request, or budget amount with specifics, like you talk about like a 70-30, 60-40, and then whatever cap, like the
I
model
suppose
of that.
if it could be heard by November 8th, I just don't want this to be like, December, January, and then get stuck here in committee. So,
What's the motion?
The motion is to use the North Beach model that we currently have on our facade program, apply it to the South Beach model, and make sure that the private property owners get quotes and that they cap it at $20,000. And I was thinking that I don't want people to, we would cap our contribution at $20,000. There's 6 applications currently in North Beach. None of them have been finished yet. But this might be a way to really just beautify and have property owners incentivized to go move forward and paint something that they normally might not have, It's 7? Oh, excuse me. And that's exciting, by the way. It's really exciting about this facade program.
And this would be specifically for the Art Deco pastel colors.
Art Deco, well, buildings in our historic district.
And this, and does the
It could be
administration
flamingo.
feel that this, because I would love to do this if it still has the ability to generate the good PR. I think there was a lot of excitement when you started talking about this. And I just, I want to see a return for our investment, not only on the commercial properties, improving commercial properties aesthetically, but I think, it's almost like a renaissance of creativity. And I want to make sure that this is tied, to our ability. Yes.
The thing is, for what we did so far, we paid a fee per building, but the fee that we have been paying her would be too expensive. If I could renegotiate the fee with her or have her come up with some color palettes, like you said, maybe part of the motion is to have Barbara Hulinicki come up with a few color palettes that would,
Other property owners
preservation
could
isn't gonna
use.
like that though, because we have this Horowitz color palette that's like the Bible, like you can't really touch that. So if she comes forward, I don't really see, we already have the color palette. How could we could have her review, or recommend stuff, and if it's if it's 7 applications, then we could significantly lower the fee so that she could be involved if you want to, because I think that is part of the cool part. I'm trying to keep expenses low because our finance director here has told us that we don't have any more bucks to spend. And I'm proposing playgrounds and things, so I want to do this program. I just don't want to, do something that we can't afford to do and then have you guys tell me, oh, this could be too much. So I guess the motion could be reach out to Hulinicki, okay, and and find out what her potential fee could be, how she could envision this if we do this with private properties too. Use the North Beach model and bring it back here, I suppose, for November 8th, if possible.
If I could just get some clarification.
Yeah.
So we have several historic districts throughout the city. Are there any areas of the city that we should focus our attention on initially? Is this a pilot? Are we trying to go citywide? And then not every historic district is a Art Deco.
I would do Washington Collins and Ocean Drive. I would like it to focus right there, where I can feel like the love from 5th to 15th Street.
And then to the extent that anything may need to be approved administratively or by the HPV, I know that concern has come up before, that certain colors or schemes or renovations to historic buildings may need to be reviewed internally.
I
So
don't
it's
think
not that the property owner.
Painting doesn't need to be reviewed by HPB, and nobody wants to spend the $3,500 to go in front of the HPB. So that's why we have the pre-approved color palettes. So if we approve this and we speak to Hulinicki about it, she has to work with the already approved color palettes. So I don't want to involve the HPB
Only
in this.
bringing it up because oftentimes before paint application, properties need to do something to the facade to prepare it first to be painted. So I just want to make sure that we're in alignment with all of our
I don't think it should be a problem. I mean, as long as you're not changing anything structural on the facade, we're painting. It's painting and awning colors. What we could have her do is we have the Horowitz color palette, but what she has done with the Colony that's been very cool is pick out this funky awning that, by the way, I would have never picked what she picked, and that's why she's Barbara Hulinicki, thinking in terms of pink mirrors and, color combinations for awnings. So maybe we have her pick out an awning colors to go with the palette, and that's how we move forward. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I like that actually, because, I remember being in Disney World as a child and running into friends of the family from Brazil, and they were like, they had just, it was like they'd seen, been hit by a train, and we're like, what's up with you? What's going on? They're like, there are so many flavors of ice cream here. We cannot process this. And so I don't want us to be in that situation where we're so overwhelmed. I mean, we have historically approved, beautiful colors. The creativity is in using them differently than the way you or I might. And then adding an element of a color pop of an unusual awning or something like that. I think that is the way to go to simplify this. My concern is that usually once you start touching paint, you discover there's spalling and there's some kind of stuff that needs work. And so I don't want this to get bogged down. Like, I want us to be able to, they need to make the repairs. They need to fix the spalling. They need to do whatever waterproofing they need to do. It's not just slapping a coat of paint on. It's not structural restoration, but, you know, a moderate amount of spalling and waterproofing should be able to be approved administratively as well. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, so they'll come back with a program that we can approve for hopefully the next meeting, if we can just.
We'll come back on the 8th, yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Right. I love
Thank
this
you all.
item.
Yeah,
Thanks for
yeah.
listening us
I
out.
think,
Thank you
we
for
welcome
keeping
Sammy
it.
to,
I didn't want it to be expensive, so.
welcome Sammy to the first Finance
Yeah.
Committee meeting.
Sammy.
And thank you for all the staff and people that were tuning in from around the world.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right.